Chapter 6:24. Now, these Penglai divine wood monsters have just developed spiritual wisdom and have just begun to cultivate. It was wishful thinking to want them to master the formation immediately. Yang Chun did not have such extravagant hopes. However, after stopping to guard for a few days, Yang Chun finally understood the strength of the Penglai divine wood monsters. In just 10 days, the Penglai divine wood monsters almost reached the foundation stage at the same time. Compared with Mu Bo, this evildoer, it was dozens of times faster. This was not because the cultivation speed of the Penglai divine wood was fast, but because the starting point of their spiritual wisdom was high. It was not known how many tens of thousands of years of growth, and then it was made into a wooden box by the Earth Lord Master before he ascended, and left in front of the Earth Temple for an unknown amount of time. It experienced the reincarnation of incense flourishing to decline, plus the natural treasures. Their cultivation directly started from the foundation stage. Even without Yang Chen's cultivation method, without these first wood spiritual solution, as long as the Penglai divine would opened its spiritual wisdom, then it would not exceed a month at most, it would reach the current realm. What Yang Chen did was to make their conditions more superior, and there was no drawback of pulling up seedlings to help them grow. A Zhu and a Bai could communicate with these plants when they had not yet opened their spiritual wisdom. Now there were 24 Penglai divine wood monsters that could communicate with them with spiritual wisdom, and they were happy to jump up and down. There have been no partners here for many years. Recently, the only living creature with spiritual wisdom was Xiao Tian. It was too late to communicate with Xiao Tian. Now, they finally had more companions. Seeing that everything was on the right track, Yang Chun also left the medicine garden with peace of mind. However, when he came out of the medicine garden, he noticed that there was an abnormality around him. The spiritual awareness threads were opened in an instant, but before Yang Chun could find out the movements around him, a cold, killing intent had already reached his body, and then a thin black light quickly fell on Yang Chen's body. Ding! Yang Chen's skin was just tight. The yellow turban strongman body refining technique of the realm of mountain picking strength was running all the time. When he encountered external forces, his muscles were tense, and he instantly blocked the black light outside his body, and even did not trigger the body protection function of the golden bell. The black light that was blocked revealed its true form. It was a long, thin needle. If it wasn't for the light that flashed at high speed, people usually wouldn't notice such a thin and long needle. If it was at night, it would be an absolute weapon for sneak attacks. As soon as the long needle stopped in front of Yang Chen's chest, Yang Chen's reaction was faster than anyone else's. He immediately pinched the long needle with one hand. As soon as he pinched it, the long needle began to shake, as if it wanted to break free from Yang Chen's fingers. The other party was using the imperial sword technique to control the needles. When he was suddenly caught, he immediately panicked. But no matter how hard he tried, the black needle was firmly grasped by Yang Chen's fingertips, unable to be withdrawn. Yang Chen's spiritual consciousness had already locked onto a cultivator more than 200 feet away from him. For the time being, he couldn't see the master of this cultivator. He only knew that he was a scholar about 40 or 50 years old. He was staring at himself with a gloomy face, and his eyes flashed with a ray of hatred. In this regard, Yang Chun was very puzzled. He didn't know this guy. It must be known that Yang Chen's memory was very abnormal. Even if he only met people once, Yang Chun would remember them, but there was no shadow of this guy in his memory. The scholar was also in the Jidan stage, but it seemed that his realm was higher than Yang Chen's in the middle Jidan stage. The other party sneak attacked him as soon as he came up, and he didn't ask for right or wrong, which made Yang Chun very angry. The only thing that could be used to hand was the first wood flying sword. Yang Chen's reaction was definitely not slow. As soon as he found the trace of the opponent, the first wood flying sword immediately flew out and cut towards the other party. The other party seemed to have nothing to fear. Suddenly, 8 shields flew out from his body and danced around him, completely shielding his body within them. No matter which direction the attack came from, it would be blocked by 1 or 2 of these 8 shields. The shield was not known what material it was made of. The smile on the scholar's face showed that he had strong confidence in the shield. Hey, with a soft sound, the first wood flying sword cut on one of the shields. Originally, this was the scene that the scholar had long thought about, but the next situation made him shocked. The shield blocked the flying sword, but it only blocked a little. The first wood flying sword had been crazily scoured and tempered by the first wood true essence spiritual solution. It was already sharp. With just one sword, it cut the shield in front of it into two halves. In a panic, the scholar hurriedly sent several other shields to the front of the sword blade. The first wood flying sword cut 4 shields in a row, and it looked a little exhausted. Yang Chen moved and called the flying sword back. You dare to take my flying needle with your bare hands? Have you suffered? Although the scholar was panicked, he did not panic at all. Seeing Yang Chen take back the flying sword, he finally showed a grin. With a flash, he flew to the front of Yang Chen and faced Yang Chen. On Yang Chen's fingers, there was a slight itch, and the place where he had just been stabbed was also a little itch. This could only explain one thing. This flying needle was dipped in poison. However, this degree of toxicity could not even penetrate Yang Chen's skin into the flesh and blood. The mountain-picking strength realm of the yellow, turbaned strongman body refining technique. Not to mention the strength of the whole body, just the skin was not so easy to pierce. But since the other party was so proud, Yang Chen did not mind playing a play with him in order to get more information. In a flash, Yang Chen's face was covered with a layer of blue and black. It really seemed to be the manifestation of the poison. His legs seemed to be soft, unable to support his own weight. He staggered back 2 steps and sat down against a big tree. You used poison. Yang Chen reached out and pointed to the other party, but his arms seemed to be soft, unable to bear the weight of his hand. He just pointed and put it down. Well, there's nothing too deceitful in war. You want to show off. Who can you blame? The scholar sneered and took a few steps forward. Looking down at Yang Chen, he asked coldly, Tell me your name and origin. You don't know who I am? Yang Chen was a little surprised. The other party did not know who he was, and actually met with a sneak attack when the Dao sex means were the same as the demon sex. I don't know who you are, but I know that you can set up an array. The scholar sneered again, as if he was disdainful to answer Yang Chen's question. But in the end, he couldn't hold back the pride in his heart and said, Taishamen are looking for masters who can set up an array. As long as they catch one, there will be a good reward. You have set up an illusion array here. It looks like a good technique, but you are unlucky to meet me. Just because Taishamen are looking for masters of array? Yang Chen suddenly understood. Chapter 6:25. The last time the Taishamen's welcoming array exploded, when Yang Chen left the mainland, the specific murderer was not found. The Taishamen were so angry that they even disregarded morality and asked the disciples of the Chunyang Palace to strip their life source magic weapons on the spot. Later, under the intervention of the Lord Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island, the Taishamen suffered a loss of face. After the investigation was fruitless, they left, and Yang Chen took advantage of it and took away 15 life source magic weapons. Yang Chen originally thought that the Taishamen would erect a target in a short time for the sake of face and annihilate them all, so as to dismiss the face of the mountain gate being bombed. Unexpectedly, until now, they were still looking for the suspected formation masters, and looking at the scholar's posture, it seemed that as long as they had a certain level of attainment in the formation, they would be suspected, and they would be escorted to the Taishamen to identify them one by one. It turned out that this scholar was greedy for the reward of the Taishamen, and he happened to pass by here and found the illusion array that Yang Chen hastily arranged. He thought that Yang Chen was also a formation master, so he was tempted and waited. When he saw Yang Chen appear, he immediately launched a sneak attack. You are unlucky to meet me. The scholar did not hear the strong mockery in Yang Chen's words. Under the complacency, he thought that his poison was unparalleled in the world. Yang Chen was already a meat on the chopping board, and he was at his mercy. He did not even take the minimum precautions. That's also true. Yang Chen's voice suddenly became normal. His body suddenly stood up, stretched out his big hand, grabbed the scholar's neck, picked him up, and brought him in front of himself. How is it possible? The scholar was shocked, and the changes in front of him made him unable to believe it at all, but the big hand on his neck was like an iron clamp, reminding him that everything was true. Yang Chun pinched his neck, and he could no longer speak, but he was still doubtful in his mind. How could his poison needle not work? Are you wondering about your poison needle? Yang Chun could tell what the scholar was thinking at a glance. He smiled gently, and the blackness on his face disappeared without a trace. The hand that pinched the poison needle was placed in front of the scholar's eyes. The black needle was still pinched between two fingers. However, there was no change in Yang Chen's hand. This made the scholar, who was speechless, widen his eyes. Once again, he wondered if his eyes were playing tricks on him. Holding the poison needle, Yang Chun casually injected a few needles into the scholar's body. Although the other party was in the middle stage of the Jidan stage, he was controlled by Yang Chun with one hand, so he couldn't display any of his great abilities. She watched helplessly as Yang Chun inserted needles into her body. Her eyes were filled with despair. In less than a moment, that is, a few breaths of time, the scholar's whole body began to turn black, and his eyes began to slacken. It was completely different from the posture of Yang Chun. Even the strength of the muscles on his neck was much smaller. If Yang Chun wanted to, he could break his neck with a pinch. This was unlikely to be a fake. Of course, even if it was a fake, Yang Chun would not be afraid. In the realm of mountain-picking strength, even the strength of the pinch also had the power of thousands of jin. The scholar's fragile neck, even if he used a strong, mysterious skill to protect his body, could not stop Yang Chun from taking his life. The scholar's own poison, if he did not take the antidote, even he himself could not bear it. This was also the reason why he was confident in the poison. Yang Chen's realm was only in the early stage of the Jidan stage, which was not as good as him, so he always thought that Yang Chun had been deeply poisoned. Just as the vitality of the scholar was affected by his own poison and slowly passed away, Yang Chen's body suddenly came out of a green rattan. The rattan seemed to smell something delicious, and suddenly pierced into the scholar's arm. A powerful suction came from the rattan, and the scholar suddenly felt that his body was relaxed. The poison that made him weak under this suction obediently flowed along the blood vessels of the body and into the rattan. Then the body felt relaxed, as if it had never been poisoned. The scholar immediately understood that this must be the reason why Yang Chun was not afraid of his poison. Now his life was hanging in the hands of Yang Chun. Since Yang Chun detoxified him, he must have something to ask. On the magic weapon, the scholar understood that whether it was his poison needle or shield, it was not the opponent of Yang Chen's flying sword. The poison was ineffective against Yang Chun, so the scholar completely gave up resistance. I haven't been in the Central Plains for a long time. Tell me what has changed recently? Yang Chun didn't talk nonsense and directly said his request. His hand released the scholar's neck, but the flying sword was directly against the scholar's back. Start from the bombing of the Taishaman Mountain Gate. The scholar knew that he couldn't resist, so he cooperated obediently and began to talk to Yang Chun. After the Taishaman Mountain Gate was bombed, they found trouble with several sects, including Chunyang Palace. However, Chunyang Palace had the support of the Green Jade Immortal Island, and everything was there, so they were the first to clear the suspicion. However, there were a few small sects that were not so lucky. Although there was no particular suspicion, the Taishamans still found a few mistakes and took the opportunity to attack. Either the sect was destroyed, or they joined the Taishaman under pressure. The Taishaman of the big sect did not dare to provoke them immediately, but they would never let go of the demon sect and the monster race. It was said that many masters were sent out to find evidence in the territories of the demon sect and the monster race. Later, they were looking for masters of formations everywhere. As long as they were famous, the big sect was okay. The Taishaman would take the initiative to come to the door and ask for proof. The others, whether they were in a sect or a rogue cultivator, would be mercilessly brought back to the Taishaman and carefully questioned. Later, the Taishaman were short of manpower and even issued a high reward to the outside world. As long as they could invite a master of formations to inquire, no matter what method was used, They would give a generous reward to the cultivator who brought them, which made countless people who were hunters tempted to help the Taishaman find targets everywhere. Listening to the words of the scholar, Yang Chun began to ponder slowly. The Taishaman did this and forced those small sects to merge. It was clearly because the outer sect disciples were destroyed, so they needed a large number of reserve disciples to replenish. This was understandable, but what was the reason for the high bounty on array masters? Was it really to chase the murderer? Suddenly, Yang Chun thought of a possibility. Maybe the Taishaman used this method to make the fellows who helped the Taishaman to collect the reward to make enemies, and in the end, they had no choice but to join the Taishaman. It should be known that those who could invite people back must have some skills. This group of people had rich combat experience, and they could fight and kill without much effort. They were the talents that the Taishaman urgently needed. Just a small reward was enough to make many people have nowhere else to go, and in the end, they had to rely on the protection of the Taishaman. It was really simple and effective. Seeing that Yang Chun was deep in thought, the eyes of the scholar, who had recovered his energy, suddenly flashed with a different kind of light. Chapter 6:26. Because of Yang Chen's contemplation, the flying sword that was originally against the scholar's back had also slightly deviated from its position, which also gave the scholar an opportunity. The poison had been resolved by Yang Chen's by using the blue jade vine body. While sitting and telling Yang Chen about the recent events, the scholar's physical strength and spiritual power consumption were also recovering. Now it was almost there. This was a good time for him to get out of trouble. Yang Chun was a bit arrogant, just like the scholar thought he had controlled the situation, so he didn't even remove the opponent's weapon. Now Yang Chun made the same mistake. The two were close. Yang Chun was frowning at this time, and he didn't know where he was looking. The scholar watched all this and suddenly burst out. A sword light shot out of the Chinquan bag and went straight to Yang Chen's heart. In a flash, Yang Chun, who was distracted, suddenly moved his hand and grabbed the blade of the flying sword. The scholar didn't expect Yang Chun to react so quickly. In a great shock, he also urged the sword light with all his strength. Yang Chun was just holding the blade with his bare hands. As long as he rotated, he could cut Yang Chen's palm and stab the center of his heart. It was a good idea, but the flying sword in Yang Chen's hands was like a root, and it didn't move at all. No matter how the scholar urged the sword light, the flying sword was firmly in Yang Chen's hands. Even when the sword light hit Yang Chen's hand, there was no sign of breaking the skin. Every injustice has its perpetrator. Every debt has its debtor. I was going to spare your life, but you were looking for your own death. You can't blame me, Yang Chun said slowly, but his head kept shaking, as if it was a pity for the scholar's decision. When the scholar saw that it was not good, he hurriedly flew away. He didn't dare to stay in the same place for a moment. Just now, Yang Chun held his life and death in his hands. Wasn't standing so close to him, courting death. Yang Chun was still shaking his head and talking, giving the scholar time to escape. However, when he went out, his head remained where it was. The sword light of the first would flying sword. It was not known when it had already bypassed the neck of the scholar and cut off the whole head. Then, with a flash of sword light, the scholar's cosmosac was cut down and delivered to Yang Chun. A blood-colored vine flew out from Yang Chen's sleeve and wrapped around the scholar's corpse. In a moment, the scholar's corpse became a headless skeleton. Yang Chun casually waved his hand, and the skeleton turned into powder, disappearing with the wind without a trace. The way the Taishaman did things, they already had the intention of becoming enemies with all the sections. But now, Yang Chun still had to hide in the dark. A skinny camel was still bigger than a horse. The masters of the Taishaman were like clouds, far from what the Chunyang Palace could compete with at present. Yang Chun also needed to slowly weaken the strength of the Taishaman, and then achieve the purpose of cutting off the Taishaman. A small delay of 10 days, such as small twists and turns happened, but this did not affect Yang Chen's plan to go to the Blue Cloud sect. Summoning the shuttle, Yang Chun continued to embark on the road to the Blue Cloud sect. In less than a month, Yang Chun arrived at the gate of the Blue Cloud sect. Because of the last incident at the auction house, The image of Yang Chun had been remembered by all the disciples responsible for the reception. When they saw Yang Chun, someone immediately came up to greet him. Yang Chun was a distinguished guest, so there was no need for Yang Chun to wait at the gate for a long time. However, Sun Qingxue was still in retreat, so Yang Chun was taken directly to the place where Elder Hua Wanting was. It is estimated that little Shui should be about to condense her Dan. So this junior specially came to see. Seeing Hua Wanting, Yang Chun naturally saluted according to the rules, and, at the same time, expressed his intentions. "You are really considerate." When Elder Hua saw Yang Chun, he was in a good mood, especially when he heard that Yang Chun was concerned about his disciple. He was even happier. From the time Yang Chun said goodbye to Sun Qingxue before he went into retreat, this was the first time Yang Chun came to the Blue Cloud sect. After Yang Chen's retreat, Sun Qingxue also madly worked hard, for fear that her cultivation base would be left behind by Yang Chun. For this reason, Sun Qingxue even took the initiative to go to several dangerous places and killed a lot of monsters to hone her fighting skills. Elder Hua also realized that he had spoiled Sun Qingxue too much before. He only gave Sun Qingxue a few magic weapons to save her life at a critical moment, and let Sun Qingxue wander outside, eliminate the evil and defend the way, and also hone her own cultivation base. In just 20 years, Sun Qingxue, with an image of abhorrence of evil, coupled with a beautiful and moving image, successfully won the name of Dancing Snow Fairy among the cultivators. Whether it is the Blue Cloud sect's own sect or the outside sect, it is not known how many young talents want to make friends with the Dancing Snow Fairy, so that they have a chance to further develop. However, Sun Qingxue doesn't seem to be interested in this at all and refused all of them. The beautiful reputation, coupled with the straight talk, made countless people secretly conquer the Dancing Snow Fairy as a goal. There are also some disciples inside the Blue Cloud sect who understand the relationship between Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue and vaguely revealed a lot. As soon as the news spread, countless people hated Yang Chun almost to the bone. It was not enough to have the cold plum fairy Shi Shan Shan, and he even wanted to occupy the Dancing Snow Fairy. This was tolerable. What cannot be tolerated? Yang Chun also succeeded in being hated by the admirers of Shi Shan Shan, and added the admirers of Sun Qingxue. After Sun Qingxue's experience outside for more than 20 years, she returned to the sect and began to retreat, fully attacking the Jidan stage. With the immortal wood that Yang Chun gave her and the eternal spring wood from the wine Immortal, the Jidan could almost be said to be a sure thing. According to Elder Hua's understanding of Sun Qingxue's cultivation, Sun Qingxue should also be able to condense Dan within this year. It just so happened that Yang Chun came at this time, indicating that Yang Chun also has a deep understanding of Sun Qingxue's cultivation. Not to mention the accuracy of Yang Chen's judgment of Sun Qingxue's cultivation. Just the thought of Sun Qingxue was worthy of Hua Wanting's happiness. For Yang Chun, Elder Hua was more and more satisfied. The only fly in the ointment was that Yang Chun still had some involvement with Shi Shan Shan. He heard that he also had a relationship with a female disciple of the Chunyang Palace, and even attached great importance to his own master. Unable to treat Sun Qingxue exclusively, Elder Hua still had some grievances for his disciple. However, Elder Hua also understood that the background of Shi Shan Shan was something that Yang Chun could not fight against. And Yang Chen's talent in alchemy also determined that the sect would vigorously win over Yang Chun. He could only wrong his own disciple. In fact, now, the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island have somewhat accepted such a compromise. The premise was that Yang Chun could have a good impression of their own sect. Senior alchemists had always been in high demand in the cultivation world. This was the reality. What surprised Yang Chun was that he originally wanted to simply visit Sun Qingxue, but he did not expect that it would not take long for him to come to Elder Hua's place. Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect actually came here, and came to find Yang Chun. Chapter 6:27. I have seen Sect Master Lu. I have seen Elder Shi. When LV Jinyu arrived, Yang Chun, of course, paid his respects. Accompanying Sect Master Lu was the Law Enforcement Hall Master of the Blue Cloud sect, Elder Yinha of the Deshang stage. You don't have to be so polite. Sect Master Lu faced Yang Chun, looking very easygoing and always had a smile on his face. If this was seen in the eyes of those cultivators who knew the illustrious prestige of Sect Master Lu, they would definitely be shocked. When did Sect Master Lu, who is almost as famous as the god of evil, treat a younger generation junior so kindly? On this side, Sect Master Lu and Elder just sat down according to their identity. Elder immediately asked Yang Chun, I have a question to ask you. Please enlighten me, Elder Yang Chun said respectfully. Yinha has always had a fiery temper, and she has been in charge of the law enforcement hall for a long time. Her habit of speaking was this kind of straightforward. Yang Chun was not surprised. Last time the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island went to the Blue Cloud sect, it seems that he reached an agreement with the Chunyang Palace. Do you want to use the questioning inner heart pill in exchange for the fire seed? Yinha did not beat around the bush and directly asked, is there such a thing? Yes. In the face of Sect Master Lu and the two elders of the Deshang stage, Yang Chun did not deny it and directly answered affirmatively. Yang Chun's answer, Sect Master Lu and Elder Hua on the opposite side were not very surprised. At this point, Yang Chun also understood what was going on, so there was no plan to hide it at all. Although Yinha's words were used, and the tone was also a taste of inquiry, but Yang Chun knew that if they were not sure about this kind of thing, how could they let Elder ask it? Grasping at the wind was not something that a master of the Deshang stage would do. However, I will not use the questioning inner heart pill to exchange for the fire seed. After Yang Chun answered, he immediately added, the medicinal materials are provided by Fairy of the Green Jade Immortal Island. This younger generation junior is just refining it. This fire seed is some of the rewards of this younger generation junior. Did that girl, Shan, obtain those medicinal ingredients when she was traveling with you? Elder Hua seemed to know a lot of inside information as he asked in a pleasant manner. Yes. Yang Chun also did not hide it and still answered affirmatively. That trip was lucky. I found some 10,000 years old elixirs, just enough to refine the questioning inner heart pill. At that time, this junior and Fairy each took half. Little girl is quite lucky. Yinha couldn't help but mutter as she listened. However, she didn't say much. After all, Yang Chun had traveled with Sun Qingxue before, and they had also gained a lot. 15 corpses of the praying mantises in the peak Yuanying stage. Except for the 3 that were decapitated, the other 12 were all intact. Even the Chunyang Palace could successfully refine puppets. The Blue Cloud sect did not lack such masters. The value of the 12 Yuanying stage masters would never be lower than those 10,000 years old elixirs. However, relatively speaking, the Blue Cloud sect had 12 more Yuanying stage puppets, but the strength of the entire sect was not as obvious as the increase in Chunyang Palace. In terms of development potential, those 10,000 years old elixirs that could be used to refine the questioning inner heart pill were more attractive. Yang Chun had promised to refine the questioning inner heart pill. The Green Jade Immortal Island could get at least 20 of them. Maybe they could add at least 20 Deshang stage masters. This was a matter of benevolence and wisdom. If there was no questioning inner heart pill, these 10,000 years elixirs could at most create a few Yuanying stage masters. Speaking of it, the Blue Cloud sect had a greater advantage. But since there was a questioning inner heart pill, it seemed to be a little different. If my Blue Cloud sect can find the medicinal materials for refining the questioning inner heart pill, I wonder if you can help refine it? After Elder and Elder Hua asked one by one, Sect Master Lu finally asked the question. Sect Master Lu, together with Elder Hua and Elder the 3 could almost be said to be able to monopolize a corner of the cultivation world. If the strength of the sect was counted, they could definitely occupy at least 1/10 of the strength of the Dao sects. But at this moment, the 3 predecessors were looking at Yang Chun, waiting for Yang Chun's answer. There was no way. Now, there was no one else who could refine the questioning inner heart pill except Yang Chun. Whether it was the Blue Cloud sect, the Green Jade Immortal Island, or even the Taishaman and the 5 Elements sect, They were all trying to figure out how to refine the questioning inner heart pill. But no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't solve the mystery of the refining of the questioning inner heart pill. Yang Chun, the alchemist master, was unique at the moment. No one could replace Yang Chen's position. Even if Yang Chen was still only in the early Jidan stage, anyone could easily kill Yang Chen. Of course, this was what they thought. Of course, this junior has no problem. Yang Chen replied with a smile, but he still did not forget his own sect and reminded, but the predecessors still have to ask the master of my sect for his opinion. This junior, as a disciple of the Chunyang Palace, can't forget this. This was to make some deals between the Blue Cloud sect and the Chunyang Palace again. But whether it was Sect Master Lu or Elder Hua or Elder Shi, they did not think that Yang Chun had done too much. Always remember to ask for benefits for their own sect. This was the duty of a disciple of the sect. Such a disciple, they really didn't know what kind of dog shit luck Chunyang Palace had to find him. It was said that Chu Hong, the traitor of the Chunyang Palace, had always been dissatisfied with Yang Chun and suppressed him, and had never taught Yang Chun enough. All of Yang Chun's knowledge was learned by himself. If they had known this earlier, if the Blue Cloud sect had been able to bring Yang Chun into the sect one step ahead of time, wouldn't many of these great benefits belong to the Blue Cloud sect? It was a pity that money was hard to buy. If they had known earlier, it was estimated that Yang Chun and the Blue Cloud sect did not have this fate. Do you still want the fire seed? Elder Hua asked again to confirm Yang Chen's request. I want the fire seed. Yang Chen nodded heavily and added, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade fire seeds. I don't want the one that this younger generation junior already has. This request was very normal. As far as the Blue Cloud sect knew, the Green Jade Immortal Island also had such conditions, indicating that Yang Chen did not favor either side. At this point, the two sides were basically finalized. However, the sect still needed to discuss with the Blue Cloud sect and the Chunyang Palace. That was not what Yang Chen could decide now. After the business was finished, both sides also relaxed. Elder Hua began to ask curiously, Yang Chen, your wood attribute spirit power is very pure, but what is the reason? As a master of the wood attribute Deshang stage, Yang Chen had a pure first wood true essence aura. How could Elder Hua not feel it? It was just that they were talking about business before, and there was no time to talk about this. Now Elder Hua finally asked. When Elder Hua mentioned this, even Sect Master Lu and Elder Shi began to be curious. They clearly remembered that Yang Chen was a cultivator of the fire attribute. How could there be a strong, would attribute spirit power in his body now? Chapter 628. In order to study the technique of controlling fire, this younger generation junior deliberately referred to the cultivation methods of several other departments. Some simple ones, this younger generation junior deliberately cultivated and personally felt it. Yang Chen replied with a smile, I just got a wood magic weapon. By chance, the spiritual power was absorbed, and then it became like this. Strictly speaking, Yang Chen did not lie, but some things were vague. Yang Chen's deeds as a disciple in the Yeshio Villa, thousands of disciples and servants. It was impossible for everyone to keep the secret like the head of the palace. Naturally, it could also be spread to the outside. The wood magic weapon was the most unreliable. However, if he really took out the first wood true essence spiritual solution, what kind of wood magic weapon was not good enough? The explanation could only be explained to this point. Yang Chen would not tell the people of the Blue Cloud sect that he had a full attribute postnatal spirit root, and that he intended to form his nascent soul with all attributes, right? Naturally, the 3 seniors of the Blue Cloud sect could not get to the bottom of it and ask what kind of cultivation method Yang Chen had cultivated and what kind of magic weapon he had obtained, right? That was not called caring about the younger generation or curiosity, but a forced confession. For Yang Chen's explanation, Elder Hua was also satisfied for the time being. At least Yang Chen did not hide too much from her, and even told her about the various cultivation methods that he had cultivated. In fact, Elder Hua had already known through Sun Qingxue that Yang Chen's would attribute spiritual power was pure and that he had already reached the foundation establishment stage. In fact, this question was purely out of curiosity. Several senior members of the Blue Cloud sect cared about Yang Chen's alchemy ability. As long as he could refine high-level medicinal pills and could refine the questioning inner heart pill, they did not care much about other things. After all, Yang Chen was not a member of their sect. Even if they were optimistic about this young man, there was no need to pay attention to every detail. On the other hand, Yang Chen thought of a cultivation method because of Elder Hua's question. The 8th metal true secret art was obtained by Yang Chen from the Blue Cloud sect in a jade slip that recorded a story. At that time, Wan Qian must have given a copy, not the original. The original must still be in the Blue Cloud sect's library. After a few decades, there would be disciples of the Blue Cloud sect who did not do their proper work who would discover this part of the technique from the library and make a great contribution. From then on, the Blue Cloud sect also possessed the 8th metal true art, the original cultivation method. It was almost impossible to destroy the original copy from the Blue Cloud sect's library. Since it could not prevent the Blue Cloud sect from discovering this technique and strengthening the sect, why should Yang Chen not push the boat along with the current? Since this matter would be discovered by a disciple who did not do his proper work, Yang Chen thought that it would be better to bring it up himself and give the Blue Cloud sect a big favor. Maybe this favor could also be exchanged for some unexpected benefits. For this kind of favor, Yang Chen always did not mind the more the better. The last time he saved Elder Hua from the entanglement of the blood demon vine was one, and this time the 8th metal true art was another. After understanding this, Yang Chen's mind suddenly had some more words. Anyway, it was just to let the Blue Cloud sect get the 8th metal true art for a few decades earlier. It could not really change anything, but it could give himself a big favor from the Blue Cloud sect. Yang Chen would definitely not let go of this opportunity. The cooperation had been finalized. Originally, Sect Master Lu and Elder Shi planned to leave after a few words of greeting, but Yang Chen had this idea. How would he allow them to leave? He immediately said, "Several seniors, this younger generation junior found one thing, and I want to ask the seniors to look into it." Listening to Yang Chen, Sect Master Lu and Elder Shi, of course, could not ignore it and immediately left. Elder Shi was a straightforward person and immediately asked, "What is it?" Yang Chen's face showed a hesitant look, but in the end he still said, "This is one of the books that this younger generation junior exchanged from the Blue Cloud sect last time. I also asked Sect Master Lu to find this piece of jade slip from the sect's library. This younger generation junior has something to say." As he said this, Yang Chen handed over the piece of jade slip that he had in his hand. Sect Master Lu was very puzzled when he received it. His spiritual awareness just scanned it, and he immediately knew the content inside. A novel with millions of words. Sect Master Lu, of course, couldn't read it word by word. He just roughly scanned the beginning, looked at the title, and then handed it over to Elder Shi Yanhe. Elder Shi took it, scanned it with his spiritual awareness, and immediately frowned. Martial arts universe? What does this mean? After asking this sentence, he directly handed the jade slip to Elder Hua next to him. Hua Wanting took it and also scanned it with her spiritual awareness. She immediately laughed out. This book is actually called Martial Arts Universe, hee hee. She looked up and looked at Yang Chen. She was also very puzzled and asked, "Let us see this book?" This younger generation junior has an important discovery. Yang Chen looked serious, and he did not have the slightest intention of joking. He just insisted on his request. "I also asked the seniors to bring the original version of this jade slip so that we can compare it." Seeing that Yang Chen was very serious, Sect Master Lu and the other two looked at each other. After looking at each other, Sect Master Lu decided to believe Yang Chen's words and nodded to Elder Shi. Elder Shi went directly to the door and ordered a disciple to go to the library and bring the jade slip of the martial arts universe. The disciple was going to do it right away, but Elder Shi thought about it and finally decided to go by himself. After all, the disciples were not safe. Once there was any trouble, it was hard to say. The reason why he treated it so solemnly was because of Yang Chen. The last time Yang Chen and son Qingxue went to explore the secret plane, The content of the secret plane key was learned by Yang Chun from some miscellaneous books, and it was the same as when Shi Shanshan went to find the blood essence of the howling celestial dog. Although Sect Master Lu and others did not know what Yang Chun and Shi Shanshan were looking for, they also heard that Yang Chun found a clue from a miscellaneous book, so they agreed to go together. There were such two things before and after, enough to make everyone interested in a miscellaneous book that Yang Chun attached great importance to. However, there was only one piece of jade slip. Either Sect Master Lu or Elder Hua looked at it. The contents of millions of words. Even if it was scanned with spiritual awareness, it could not be read at once. These words were made up to let the cultivators pass the time. If the spiritual awareness swept it all, then what was the point? You must read it word by word. This was wonderful. The problem was that the level of this story was so poor that people did not even have a desire to read it. Elder Hua just read the beginning and almost couldn't read it anymore. But she would not say it clearly, and there was no expression on her face. She just respected the Sect Master and handed the jade slip back to Sect Master Lu so that Sect Master Lu could have a look first. Sect Master Lu also felt the same. He only saw a little bit, and he felt that it was absurd, and there was a feeling that he could not read it anymore. But this was Yang Chen's insistence, and he could only bite the bullet and look down. Chapter 629. Among the people present, including Yang Chun, at this moment, they were eager for Elder Shi to come back. At least Sect Master Lu has been unable to bear the absurd plot, the clumsy text, and the awkward pronunciation. Even if he looked at one more word, it was an invisible torture. But when Elder Shi went, it seemed that he disappeared and did not come back for a long time. Sect Master Lu could only endure the discomfort and continue to read. He wanted to see what was in it that made Yang Chun so solemnly say it in front of the Blue Cloud Sect Master and the two Deshang stage elders. However, from another perspective, Sect Master Lu and Elder Hua were hoping that Elder Shi would come back a little slower. Maybe before she came back, Sect Master Lu could find some hints in it. Now Yang Chun had already given such an obvious hint that the secret he discovered was in this book. If Sect Master Lu could not find it soon, wouldn't it seem that Sect Master Lu was too incompetent? This was not just a problem for Sect Master Lu alone, but it was about the face of the Blue Cloud sect. It must be known that this jade slip was exchanged by Yang Chun from the Blue Cloud sect. The things inside were discovered by Yang Chun, but the people of the Blue Cloud sect did not find it. This could only explain one thing. That was, there was no one in the Blue Cloud sect who could recognize the goods. If there was such a rumor, it would be a great blow to the reputation of the Blue Cloud sect. The jade slip that was placed in their own sect for people to read contained treasures. Their own people could not find it, and they did not pay enough attention to it. Instead, it was discovered by an outsider. In the future, if the Blue Cloud sect wanted to recruit disciples, some people might hesitate. Therefore, no matter how uncomfortable it was, Sect Master Lu could only bite the bullet and look forward to finding what Yang Chun found before Elder Shi came back. However, most of the time, there was a huge gap between reality and ideals. Even Sect Master Lu in the late Yuanying stage, after 2 hours after insisting on reading hundreds of thousands of words at the fastest speed, she still couldn't find out what was in it that made Yang Chun solemnly mention it in front of her and the two Deshang stage elders. At this time, Elder Shi had already rushed back from the library. When Elder Shi came in, he didn't look too good. There were 2 reasons for the old lady's unsightly expression. The first reason was to look for this storybook jade slip with the title Universe of Martial Arts. This jade slip was one of the many miscellaneous books in the Blue Cloud sect, and there were hundreds of thousands or even millions of such jade slips in the Blue Cloud sect. Even Elder Shi had to mobilize all of the disciples on duty in the Compendium Tower to search through the entire area for more than 2 hours before he could find a single piece of it. This was still only the case of looking at the title. If he checked the content, he really didn't know when he would be able to find it. Fortunately, there is only one piece with the same title, and the books in the Compendium Tower were all original copies. After Elder Shi confirmed it, he took it away. The second reason was basically the same as Sect Master Lu. Elder Shi intended to delay for a while on the road, to read the contents carefully to find what Yang Chun found, so that the things that Sect Master Lu worried about before would not happen. However, when he read it carefully, Elder Shur was so angry that he almost flew into a rage. This was also called a storybook? How dare this be called a storybook? It's not that Elder Shur hasn't read storybook novels, but at least the content inside can still be read. However, this book called Universe of Martial Arts turned out to be awkward and biased, and the content was also absurd and difficult to look at. After only reading more than 100,000 words, Elder Shur was already somewhat unbearable. This was still the fastest reading speed. If it was replaced by careful reading and pondering word by word, Elder Shur estimated that with her Deshang state of mind, she would be directly thrown away. Unbearable to look at was specially used to describe this kind of thing. Just reading this for a while, it took more than half an hour. Elder Shur also understood that he couldn't drag on for too long. As a last resort, he could only take the original Jade Slip to Elder Hua. Sect Master Lu got the original text of the Jade Slip and handed Yang Chen's copy to Yang Chun. He sighed slightly in his heart and had to admit that if there was any discovery, it was thanks to Yang Chun. Even if this kind of thing was always in his hands, it was estimated that Sect Master Lu would not be interested in looking at it more. He really couldn't stand it. Yang Chun, what have you found? You can talk about it. Now that this situation has been recognized, Sect Master Lu had to face Yang Chun and let him point out the problems he had discovered. Although Yang Chun has already hinted so clearly, as long as everyone read it carefully, it was estimated that any problems would be clear at a glance. At most, it would take some time and make the people who read uncomfortable. However, as a senior expert, Yang Chun has already proposed that he found the problem and also promised to refine the questioning inner heart pill for the sect. So whether it was Sect Master Lu, Elder Hua, or Elder Shur, they couldn't be thick-skinned and refuse to admit Yang Chen's discovery. Simply let Yang Chun point out on the spot, but they would owe Yang Chun a favor for this matter. This is a very long story, but fortunately, there are chapters to follow. Yang Chun smiled and didn't take too much credit. He just casually scanned it with his spiritual awareness, and then pointed out Senior can look at the contents of the low 4,639 chapters. Even if there were chapters to follow, Sect Master Lu, in order to find the position of the lower chapter 4,639, it took almost half an incense stick of time to find it. Yang Chun prompted him to look at the contents of this chapter, and Sect Master Lu scanned it on the spot. The number of words in this chapter was not much, that is, about 2,000 or 3,000 words. In a moment, Sect Master Lu finished reading it and remembered it in his mind in a short time. He handed the Jade Slip to Elder Shur. Elder Shur and Elder Hua continued to take turns to look, but Sect Master Lu was recalling the contents of this chapter. He was puzzled. There seemed to be no words that were too noticeable. As always, it was obscure and difficult to understand. Moreover, the author of this chapter actually made up a cultivation method, which was unreasonable and absurd. After thinking for a while, Sect Master Lu did not understand what was in it that was worthy of Yang Chen's attention. At this time, even Elder Shur and Elder Hua had read the contents of it. After reading it, they were all confused and puzzled, just like Sect Master Lu. Yang Chun, is it possible that the place where this guy practices is described in it? What is the meaning of it? Thinking about it, Sect Master Lu could only think of this possibility and asked hesitantly. Chapter 630. Practice Place. Yang Chun was stunned. There was indeed a practice place in this chapter, but it was indeed a fictitious place in the story. It was not the focus that Yang Chun wanted them to see. Sect Master, two elders, turned the cultivation method upside down and ponder over the content. Yang Chun shook his head and denied the Sect Master's guess. At this moment, Yang Chun no longer kept them guessing, and more directly hinted. In the past, Yang Chun knew about it, so from the beginning, he was looking for it directly. The previous article did not explain it in detail. Even so, Yang Chun found this cultivation method after enduring the torture of the first millions of words. Eighth metal, true, secret art, was an ancient cultivation method. The description of the cultivation method from a long time ago was slightly different from the modern grammar and vocabulary. It was even more nonsense. Sect Master Lu and the two elders did not think of such a possibility at the beginning, but just pondered over the words and meaning. If they could directly see the meaning of a reverse cultivation method, then they could be regarded as a keen person. However, from the beginning of Yang Chen's hint, the several seniors were thinking about Yang Chen's previous adventure with Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan, so they instinctively focused their attention on the location and did not think about the cultivation method at all. With Yang Chen's hint, the three of them began to ponder. The content of the short chapter of a few thousand words, the three of them have remembered it in their hearts. The cultivation method was only a few hundred words, even if it was very difficult to pronounce. The three of them have already memorized it. After thinking about it, even without thinking about it, it immediately became smooth, and it was no longer difficult to understand. For a moment, the faces of the three people became serious. Apparently, they had discovered the magic of the cultivation method. Sect Master Lu was the sect master. Although his status was very high, his cultivation base was not as high as the two Deshang stage elders. Naturally, in judging this kind of cultivation method, he was not as accurate as the two elders. In the words of Sect Master Lu, there was still a tone of disbelief. Is this eighth metal true secret art? Elder Shi had the highest cultivation base among the three and was the most certain. Although she was an earth spirit root, it did not hinder her understanding of metal spirit techniques. Elder Hua's promotion to the Deshang stage was not as strong as Elder Shi, and for a long time, he was fighting with the blood demon vine. In terms of knowledge, there was a little gap with Elder Shi. However, Elder Hua also discovered the power of this cultivation technique. It turned out to be a cultivation technique that directly used the most original eighth metal true essence. It should be the eighth metal true secret art. It can't be wrong. With the affirmation of Elder Shi, coupled with the speculation of Sect Master Lu, Elder Hua was also full of confidence in this cultivation method. However, the most important reason why Elder Hua would be so sure came from Yang Chen. Since Yang Chen reminded them so solemnly, he would never use a counterfeit to deceive them. Moreover, this was the original copy of the library. It was impossible for Yang Chen to fake it. Sect Master Lu now finally understood why Yang Chen had them go to the original copy of the library. It was to prove that he had not tampered with it. Even with the state of mind of the two masters of the Deshang stage, in the face of the eighth metal true secret art, they still couldn't suppress their excitement. Even if none of the three of them had a metal attribute spirit root, as the sect master and elders of the Blue Cloud sect, they would definitely support this kind of good thing that would bring countless benefits to the Blue Cloud sect. The shock of the three seniors was only a short time, and they soon recovered to normal. However, when they looked at Yang Chen again, there were a lot more things in the eyes of the three people. A junior in the Jidan stage. If you count the time when he took this jade slip, he was only in the early stage of the foundation stage. Unexpectedly, he had such a good eyesight, such a strong insight. He could find such an incredible cultivation method from millions of boring and even mentally torturous words, and he also thought about it in a timely manner. What kind of shocking patience did he have to be able to do this? All three seniors had seen this, but none of them had read more than 1,000,000 words. If it wasn't for Yang Chen's previous reminder, even if these words were in front of them, they would at most look at 30 to 50,000 words, and then they would definitely throw it as far as they could. How could they notice that after millions of words, there would be such a peerless treasure hidden? Admiration, shock, gratitude, regret. Many complex emotions were intertwined. This was the mood of the three seniors now. When the three people looked at Yang Chen, it was as if they were looking at a little monster. There was no way not to regard Yang Chen as a monster. He was only in the foundation stage, but he could refine the Black Tiger Essence Nourishing Pill, Black Tiger Tranquil Pill, Questioning Inner Heart Pill, and Heaven-Seizing Pill that were used by Deshang stage masters. What was this if not an evildoer? Which cultivator would cultivate all the 5 elements of cultivation methods? And even because of an accidental magic weapon, he also cultivated his main spiritual power into a wood attribute that was not his own fire spirit root. What was this if not an evildoer? Ordinary cultivators, which one could endure the millions of words in the extremely bad book and could still insist on reading it word by word and discover the eighth metal true secret art from it? What was this if not an evildoer? If Yang Chun was a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, how good would that be? Such a regret flashed in sect master Lu's heart. It must be known that Sun Qingxue and Yang Chen knew each other at that time. If Sun Qingxue was valued more in the sect at that time, maybe with her grateful character, she would look for Yang Chun at that time, and then pull Yang Chun into the Blue Cloud sect. If that was the case, wouldn't Yang Chun become a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect? And then no matter what medicinal pill it was the medicinal pill of the Blue Cloud sect. No matter how many secret planes Yang Chun discovered, it was the benefit of the Blue Cloud sect. It's all that damn Wan Qian's fault. In order to suppress Sun Qingxue and make way for her own grand disciple Zhu Yanqun, she did not hesitate to send Sun Qingxue to the most mediocre Zhou Sulan. She even gave Sun Qingxue a martial art that had been tampered with, so that Sun Qingxue could not stand out earlier and attract everyone's attention. Now Wan Qian and her 6 apprentices have been missing for decades. When they come back, they must punish Wan Qian for the crime of killing her fellow disciples. Even if she was an elder of the sect, she could not be forgiven lightly. Such a thought only flashed by, and sect master Lu quickly concentrated his mind on the present. This eighth metal true secret art was discovered by Yang Chun. If Yang Chun did not say it, it was estimated that no one would know that such an important cultivation method would be hidden in such a rotten book. The question was how to reward Yang Chun now. Chapter 631. Now sect master Lu and the 2 elders understood why Yang Chun hesitated before. This kind of thing like the eighth metal true secret art. With Yang Chun's knowledge, he would never not know it. Such an important cultivation method. Yang Chun himself knew it and secretly offered it to his own sect. There was no problem at all. Now that it was said in front of the 3 people, it was simply equivalent to giving a peerless cultivation method to the Blue Cloud sect. The miscellaneous books that Wan Qian prepared for Yang Chun in the past, who knew what was inside? No one would know that Yang Chun got this book that recorded the eighth metal true secret art. Even if Yang Chun didn't say it, no one would know. Although in a strict sense, since these words came from the Blue Cloud sect, then this cultivation method should belong to the Blue Cloud sect. But Yang Chun was not a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect, and he had no obligation to maintain the interests of the Blue Cloud sect. It was his duty not to say it, but to say it was a big favor. This favor was not the kind of Blue Cloud sect that came to the door, just like this time the sect asked Yang Chun to refine medicinal pills, but Yang Chun took the initiative to take it out. From this point of view, the weight of this favor was not ordinary. Of course, no one would know that even if Yang Chun didn't say it, after a few decades, there would be a disciple of the Blue Cloud sect who didn't seek to make progress and found this eighth metal true secret art from book. Since no one knew, in order to return this unusual favor to Yang Chun, it would be a bit difficult for sect master Lu. Asking Yang Chun to refine the questioning inner heart pill, because there was a precedent of the Green Jade Immortal Island, the Blue Cloud sect only needed to refer to it and pay for it. But on this matter, there was no object to refer to, and it could only be discussed by sect master Lu and several elders. Yang Chun, on behalf of the Blue Cloud sect, I thank you for your kindness. He had not thought a way to repay Yang Chun, but he had to at least say some polite words first. The reason why sect master Lu was the sect master was that he had the means to make 8 faces. He immediately thanked him. No matter what kind of gratitude he used, he had to at least express it first. Facing Yang Chun, sect master Lu also cupped his hands and thanked him. It was not an easy feat to make the sect master of the Blue Cloud sect thank him. With the strength of Blue Cloud sect, what couldn't they do if they wanted to leave? Unless it was something like refining the questioning inner heart pill, it was worthy of her saying a word of thanks. Now that the eighth metal true secret art was born, sect master Lu had to sincerely express his thanks. I don't dare to thank the sect master. Yang Chun hurriedly returned the courtesy. No matter what, he was also a senior. He used the proper etiquette of cupping his hands. Yang Chun, as a junior, dared not neglect. This was originally obtained from the Blue Cloud sect. Returning it to the Blue Cloud sect is also a return to the original owner. The more beautiful Yang Chen's words were, the more the three seniors of the Blue Cloud sect felt that they should heavily compensate Yang Chun. Yang Chun, a junior in the Jidan stage, could do this. As a senior, how could they do worse? If the return was less, not only would it seem that they were lacking in bearing, but the Blue Cloud sect would also be ridiculed. Yang Chun, this eighth metal true secret art is of great importance. After thinking about it, Sect Master Lu still had to bite the bullet and say some words first. It was related to the reputation of the Blue Cloud sect, and Sect Master Lu had to be cautious. This younger generation junior understands. Without waiting for Sect Master Lu to speak, Yang Chun had already directly followed up the words. This younger generation junior swears by the heart demon, I will definitely keep my mouth shut. Please rest assured, Sect Master. Swearing by the heart demon. This was the highest level of oath among the cultivators, and it was not easy for a cultivator to make a heart demon oath. Yang Chen's attitude made Sect Master Lu and the two elders feel that they owed something. Their hearts were only thinking about how to make up for it. Of course, this was really a matter of great importance. Sect Master Lu must also discuss with the other elders before deciding how to deal with this matter. For the time being, it was still impossible to give Yang Chun a specific answer immediately. Yang Chun certainly understood this, and even Sect Master Lu's thoughts were almost the same, so he directly grabbed the conversation and swore by the heart demon that he would never leak it. This was also a small method he used. Sect Master Lu's request was a bit unreasonable, but he still had to do so, and everyone's face would be ugly. Yang Chun grabbed the conversation and took the initiative to express his position, which seemed to be reasonable, and to avoid everyone's embarrassment. At the same time, it also made Sect Master Lu feel that he owed something. Naturally, he would consider more in return. Compared to a practical favor, Yang Chun did not care about this little reputation. And if he became famous because of this, but the price was to embarrass the Blue Cloud sect. Whether it was from the relationship between Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue, or from the current cooperation between Chunyang Palace and Blue Cloud sect, it was not a good thing. On the contrary, this was a win-win result that would benefit both sides. Blue Cloud sect saved their face, and Yang Chun got a big favor for nothing. Maybe there would be a generous return. Compared with a false reputation, Yang Chun valued the latter more. You came to see little Shui this time, right? Sect Master Lu's heart was gratified, with a smile on his face, but his mouth calmly said, Little Shui is in seclusion to condense her Dan, which is a recent matter. You can stay here for a while, waiting for little Shui to condense her Dan. Then this junior will not be polite. I'll have to bother you. This was Yang Chen's plan. However, letting Sect Master Lu personally issue an invitation to stay, and shamelessly stay, the feeling was completely different. You have done a great favor to my sect. If you need anything, just say it. Sect Master Lu asked straightforwardly. To thank him, of course, he had to first see what Yang Chen wanted. If Yang Chen's request was not high, Sect Master Lu could even make a decision on the spot. I don't dare. This junior just did some of my duty. I don't dare to accept the great favor that senior said. At this time, if he made a request, he would be a fool. The more he didn't take credit, the more Blue Cloud sect would feel indebted. How could Yang Chun easily use this kind of big favor? He had to save it for a critical time. In that case, my sect will have an auction in the near future. You can see what you're interested in. Sect Master Lu did not ask, but said lightly. Then he seemed to ask casually. It is said that the last time the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island personally came to Chunyang Palace, in addition to talking about the questioning inner heart pill, it was for you and the little girl Shan to settle the marriage. Hearing the words of Sect Master Lu, Yang Chen couldn't help but secretly complain. At that time, in order to cover up the cooperation with Chunyang Palace, the Lord of Tantai found the excuse of the marriage between Shan and Yang Chen. Now, Sect Master Lu also said this. What did he mean? Little Shui is also a good girl, and she is also devoted to you, Sect Master Lu said with a smile. When little Shui comes out of seclusion, I have to go to Chunyang Palace in person and settle the matter with Palace Master He. Chapter 632. This topic, Yangchen really didn't dare to talk about it now. However, Sect Master Lu also revealed another meaning. That was, she would go to Chunyang Palace in person. Sect Master Lu went to Chunyang Palace. Of course, it was not just for the matter of Yangchen, but also to discuss further cooperation with the head of the palace. Just like the last time the Lord of Tantai covered up, the matter of Yangchen and Sun Qingxue was just an excuse. However, the move of Sect Master Lu personally coming to Chunyang Palace explained a lot of problems. In the past, Chunyang Palace wanted to cooperate with the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island. It was the head of the palace who personally went to the two sects to seek cooperation. This kind of unequal status was the embodiment of the strength of the sect. Now, not only the Lord of Tantai of the Green Jade Immortal Island personally came to Chunyang Palace, but even Sect Master Lu of the Blue Cloud sect had to go to Chunyang Palace, which in itself had explained a lot of problems. At least now the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island really treated Chunyang Palace as an equal partner. This was a remarkable progress. Although Chunyang Palace had not yet reached the point where it could be on an equal footing with the two major sects in terms of strength alone, Yangchen alone, coupled with the resources of the questioning inner heart pills, was enough to promote everyone's cooperation to an equal status. Even if Yangchen was not easy to answer, he had to express his welcome. Thank you for the concern of Sect Master Lu. This younger generation junior will definitely report to the head of the palace and wait for the arrival of the sect master. At this point, the purpose of Sect Master Lu and Elder Shi coming to see Yangchen had been achieved, and there was even a big surprise. They must now immediately inform the other elders and study how to thank Yangchen. Soon, the two exchanged a few polite words and left the courtyard of Elder Hua. There was one more original cultivation method, which was also a big event for the Blue Cloud sect. Elder Hua just settled Yangchen in the guest room and told the servants to take good care of him, but he went to attend the high-level meeting of the Blue Cloud sect. For more than 10 days, it was calm and nothing special happened. Yangchen also stayed quietly in the guest room this time. He did not go out, but just concentrated on cultivation. Among the Yang 5 elements, there was only the third fire condensation dan. There was only the fourth fire condensation dan. Originally, Yangchen thought that when the first would condensation dan, the three kinds of spiritual power condensation dan would be the same as when he was in the foundation stage, driving other attributes of spiritual power at the same time, but now it seems that this was not the case. Perhaps the spiritual power required for condensation dan was stronger, and the three spiritual powers were far from enough to trigger all the spiritual powers to condense. Next, Yangchen must find ways to condense the other spiritual powers. Otherwise, if the spiritual power of each attribute was too far apart, it would be detrimental to his future cultivation. If there was no other way, Yangchen could only follow the prescribed order for a period of time and carry out a spiritual power cultivation alone. He believed that with Yangchen's current level of the peak foundation stage, it was not so difficult to build the foundation one by one. The only thing he needed was time. But this time, the matter of the first with true essence made Yangchen discover that the things left by the guys above were simply terrifying. Obviously, on the immortal beheading stage, that guy only said that there was a vein of first with true essence. Who knew that after so many years, this vein of first with true essence could actually accumulate into such a first with true essence pool? This reminded Yangchen of what another person had said. That person was none other than Tai Bai Jinxing, Li Chongqing. Tai Bai Jinxing also said that there was a vein of seventh metal true essence in the lower realm, which was a gift to Yangchen. However, the seventh metal true secret art Yangchen had successfully cultivated it with a bottle of seventh metal true essence obtained by Dao Ba from the monster plane. Originally, Yangchen thought that there was no need to look for the seventh metal true essence, and Li Chongqing's kindness would be left to the people behind. However, in the Banyan Tree Cave, Yangchen discovered that after the first with true essence reached a certain level, it would be so terrifying. After collecting it, it was simply an inexhaustible thirst with true essence. Even a nameless monster race of the heavenly court had such a rich accumulation. What would happen to the vein of seventh metal true essence left by a super celebrity like Tai Jinxing, who had existed since the establishment of the heavenly court? Thinking about it made people salivate. Rummaging through the clues in his memory, there was one that made Yang Chun very tempted. Before an immortal died, he said that he had left a medicine-nourishing gourd in the lower realm. As long as the medicinal pills were stored in this gourd, there would never be a situation where the medicinal qi dissipated after being stored for thousands of years. It also saved Yang Chun the trouble of making a large number of high-level talismans every time he needed an important medicinal pill. After saying goodbye to Sun Qingxue and returning to the sect to settle down, Yang Chun planned to set off to find these two things. Naturally, because of the Penglai Divine Wood, the collection of the first wood true essence spiritual solution was so smooth. Before departure, Yang Chun must also prepare a seventh metal magic weapon. This was just in case. Once he suddenly fell into the first wood true essence spiritual solution, like in the Banyan Tree Cave, Yang Chun needed at least a magic weapon to support his body. As for collecting the seventh metal true essence spiritual solution, there was no problem with the gourd of the Dragon Palace. Now, there were only a few kinds of liquids in the gourd. One was the first wood true essence spiritual solution. One was the Four Seas mysterious coral liquid. One was the distiller's yeast of the Jade Dragon, plus the auxiliary wine brewed for the distiller's yeast, and a vein of Spirit Spring. The space was still very large. There was an immortal who said that there were still dozens of refined flying sword left. The quality of the flying sword that he couldn't forget in the heavenly court was almost needless to say. This was also the confidence that Yang Chun promised his master and senior sister to prepare the flying sword for them at that time. Now his master and senior sister have both condensed their cores and are consolidating their cultivation base. After their cultivation base is consolidated, they can start to temper the flying sword. Yang Chun suddenly found that his time was a little tight. The schedule was very tight, and there was little time left for himself. It seemed that the condensation of his other spiritual powers could only rely on some external means. Of course, external means did not mean pulling up the seedlings to help them grow, nor did it mean that Yang Chun would be opportunistic, but similar to the method of using the first wood true essence spiritual solution, he could condense his own seventh metal spirit power. He believed that if his own Yang 5 elements, 3 kinds of spirit power condensed, even if he could not condense all the attributes of the spirit power, he could also drive the other spirit power of the Yang 5 elements to form the core. A series of plans, Yang Chun did not make the decision in Chunyang Palace, but when he was waiting for Sun Qingxue to condense her Dan in the Blue Cloud sect. It couldn't be said that this was also a result that made people speechless. 10 days later, when Yang Chun was cultivating, he suddenly noticed a riot of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Elder Hua's courtyard was adjacent to Sun Qingxue's, and the center of the spiritual power riot was the courtyard where Sun Qingxue was located. This familiar spiritual power fluctuation, Yang Chun was very familiar. Sun Qingxue condensed her Dan. Chapter 633. In a big sect like Blue Cloud sect, almost every once in a while, there would be this kind of spiritual power riot. Some were at the foundation establishment stage, some were at the core condensation stage, and some were at the nascent soul stage. Therefore, this kind of familiar spiritual power fluctuation would not cause any sensation in the Blue Cloud sect. At most, there were a few people who cared about the sect looking at the direction of the spiritual power fluctuation. They nodded thoughtfully, feeling that someone in the sect had made a breakthrough, and their strength had increased a little. Yang Chun was even happier than the others. He came here to wait for Sun Qingxue to condense her core. The timing of Sun Qingxue's core condensation was less than a month away from Yang Chen's estimation, which showed that Sun Qingxue was still walking on her original genius path. The spiritual power turbulence lasted for a long time before it stopped. Elder Hua had long felt this aura. So he flew back and waited with Yang Chun for his beloved disciple Sun Qingxue to come out. Congratulations! As soon as Sun Qingxue came out, she came to her master to report the good news, but she didn't expect to see Yang Chun congratulating her. She was so surprised and happy that she almost jumped up. Don't be so jumpy. You are already a grandmaster of core condensation. You can't learn such a childish state of mind. Elder Hua couldn't help but cough, reminding Sun Qingxue not to be rude. Hua Wanting couldn't help but care about this. Sure, Shanshan was recognized as Yang Chen's Taoist companion, and she was steady. She would never be as lively as Sun Qingxue. At present, she was also Sun Qingxue's biggest rival in love. If Yang Chun didn't like Sun Qingxue because of this, it would not be good news for Sun Qingxue and the Blue Cloud sect. Sun Qingxue was scolded by her master. She naughtily stuck out her little tongue, and her face flashed with intelligence. Yang Chun just looked at her with a smile, nodded, and didn't say much. The master was guiding his disciple. If he spoke, it would be inappropriate. After giving some guidance to Sun Qingxue, Elder Hua Wanting also congratulated Sun Qingxue. This disciple of his was indeed worthy of the name of a genius. Under his tutelage, she had succeeded in condensing a core in less than 100 years. And this was because she had wasted more than 10 years before, crippling her cultivation and starting over again. Thinking of this, Elder Hua felt unusually satisfied. For Wan Qian, who had schemed against Sun Qingxue, Elder Hua didn't have much guidance. He didn't hate her so much. If it weren't for her, how could Hua have such an excellent disciple? For Sun Qingxue's cultivation base, Elder Hua didn't give too much guidance. He just told her to consolidate her cultivation base. In front of Yang Chun, Elder Hua couldn't give too detailed guidance to Sun Qingxue. Anyway, she had already condensed her core and needed to consolidate it. There was plenty of time to give detailed guidance in the future. There was no need to delay the closeness of Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue at this time. Sun Qingxue, of course, understood that her master was creating conditions for herself and Yang Chun. She said goodbye to her master with a blushing face and returned to her courtyard with Yang Chun. Big brother Yang, am I as immature as a child? In her own territory, Sun Qingxue didn't have much scruples. As soon as she came back, she asked nervously. She cared about Yang Chen's perception of her. No, Yang Chen replied with a smile. Isn't it good to keep lively? There's no need to learn from others and keep a straight face. Cultivation is not to cultivate into a block of wood. Immortals also have emotions. As long as it's the real you and not pretentious, there's no problem. Hearing Yang Chen's words, the nervousness on Sun Qingxue's face disappeared without a trace. She revealed a relaxed smile. The lively image appeared on Sun Qingxue's face again. In another courtyard, Elder Hua also seemed to have a relaxed look on his face. After all, Sun Qingxue was his proud disciple. He also cared about her disciple's perception in Yang Chen's heart. Originally, he was worried that Yang Chen would have a bad impression of Sun Qingxue because he spoke and handled things so maturely. Now that Yang Chen liked it, everything was not a problem. Yang Chen liked the natural Sun Qingxue, so Sun Qingxue was naturally happy. It was not that she had never played the role of a cold and elegant fairy in front of other young handsome men, but in front of Yang Chen, she still liked the irreplaceable sense of security that Yang Chen gave her when he said, "Have I ever lied to you? Big brother Yang, why are you here? Are you waiting for me?" The happy Sun Qingxue didn't have the awareness of becoming a master at all. She didn't have a mature and steady style at all. Perhaps she only behaved like this in front of Yang Chen. She saw Yang Chen as soon as she came out of condensing her core. While she was happy, she was more concerned about why Yang Chen was here. It's about time for you to condense your core. So I came to see you. Yang Chen was not hypocritical and told her his purpose of coming. Anyway, he came to make the little girl happy. And, at the same time, he got a big favor from the Blue Cloud sect for no reason. If he also included the possible rewards for refining pills in the future, this trip to the Blue Cloud sect was absolutely perfect. Thank you, Big Brother Yang. When Sun Qingxue heard Yang Chen admit it, and he even calculated the time for her to condense her core, it could be seen that Yang Chen put her in his heart. The little girl felt sweet in her heart. She thanked him, but her face showed that she enjoyed it very much, and she looked at Yang Chun very much. Sun Qingxue had long regarded herself as Yang Chen's person. Otherwise, she wouldn't have put on mourning clothes after thinking that something had happened to Yang Chun. Therefore, she felt that everything Yang Chun gave her was reasonable. This time, thanks to your immortal wood and eternal spring wood, I can condense my core so smoothly. However, even so, Sun Qingxue specially thanked Yang Chun for these two kinds of wood. The immortal wood was given by Yang Chun, and the eternal spring wood was exchanged by Sun Qingxue with Yang Chen's Jade Dragon wine and Jiuxian. It could be said that it was Yang Chen's credit. That's also because you worked hard in your own cultivation. Otherwise, no matter how many good things you have, it doesn't matter. Yang Chun smiled and did not claim credit. What a joke! The future dancing snow fairy was afraid that she could not condense her core. At most, Yang Chun just played a role of icing on the cake. Yang Chun was not stingy with his praise. You were better than I thought. This was not Yang Chun flattering. It must be known that Sun Qingxue had to start over because of mistakes in the previous 10 years of cultivation. Even so, it was only 20 years later than Yang Chen's condensing dan. But Yang Chun had many advantages, which Sun Qingxue was far from comparable. Just the 7th metal, 5th earth, 1st wood, 10th water, these original spiritual powers, she did not have any. In order to celebrate your success in condensing your core, and for you to be able to smoothly consolidate your cultivation base, Yang Chun was very happy to take out several thick branches of Penglai Divine Wood. These are my congratulatory gifts. Chapter 634. Now Sun Qingxue was not the little girl who didn't know the goods before, especially after she reached the foundation stage. Yang Chun also gave her a 3rd grade 1st wood foundation building pill, which contained the aura of the Penglai Divine Wood. Now in these 3 thick branches, there was always an aura of the 1st wood that was exactly the same as the aura of Sun Qingxue. Sun Qingxue immediately knew what was in the hands of Yang Chun. Such 3 thick branches of the Penglai Divine Wood could almost be used to cultivate the saplings of the Penglai Divine Wood. Even if Sun Qingxue was a disciple of a big sect like the Blue Cloud sect, even if Sun Qingxue was the apprentice of Hua Wanting, a master of the Dashang stage, but seeing Yang Chun suddenly take out such a big gift, she was still shocked and speechless for a long time. What? You don't like it? The reason why Yang Chun took out the Penglai Divine Wood branch instead of the 1st wood true essence was to let Sun Qingxue have a step-by-step process. From the ordinary spiritual power to the 1st wood true essence, it took too long to consolidate and adapt. It was not as good as deepening the aura of the Penglai Divine Wood and then slowly upgrading to the 1st wood true essence. Of course, Yang Chun had another consideration. If the 1st wood true essence wanted to be refined, unless it was a monster race like the Penglai Divine Wood, it would be absorbed instinctively, just like Shi Kuei and Xiesha. If human cultivators wanted to use the 1st wood true essence, in addition to the long-term habit of infiltration and absorption, only the 1st wood true secret art could do it. Yang Chun didn't know if the Blue Cloud sect had the 1st wood true secret art. Even if the other party was Sun Qingxue in the territory of the Blue Cloud sect, Yang Chun couldn't tell the 1st wood true secret art to Sun Qingxue. An 8th metal true secret art made Sect Master Lu and the 2 masters of the Dashang stage excited. If the 1st wood true secret art and the 1st wood true essence were added, it would definitely make people have the idea of killing them. Yang Chun, who had lived 2 lives, naturally knew how sinister people could be. The 8th metal true secret art was the Blue Cloud sect's thing, and there was no pressure for Yang Chun to hand it over to them. But the 1st wood true secret art, Yang Chun was not so generous. Even if Yang Chun was willing to help Sun Qingxue had to really become Yang Chen's person. She also had to swear a heart demon oath that the 1st wood true secret art could not be taught to the people of Blue Cloud sect. Therefore, at this time, these branches of Penglai Divine Wood were the best gift, enough for Sun Qingxue to consolidate her cultivation. Of course, Yang Chen also considered that Sun Qingxue might give such a precious thing to the sect to cultivate the Penglai divine wood. However, Yang Chun did not care about such a small branch. It was not so easy to cultivate the Penglai divine wood, and it was far from enough to rely on spiritual power. It may be possible to survive, but to grow to the scale of Yang Chen's medicine garden, it would take at least 100,000 years to slowly cultivate. Not everyone had the liquefied first with true essence. Sun Qingxue was excited about Yang Chen's generosity and immediately sent these branches into the Chinquan bag. Then she did something that Yang Chun could not think of. Don't let Master and the Sect Master know that you have these branches of the Penglai divine wood. Sun Qingxue did not even open her mouth, but sent a thought through her spiritual awareness, showing how much she valued this matter. The attitude of the little girl made the smile on Yang Chen's face more prosperous. Although her master's kindness to her was as heavy as a mountain, Sun Qingxue valued Yang Chen more. Perhaps it was because in several major events, there was the shadow of Yang Chen. The Blue Cloud sect did not leave a good impression on Sun Qingxue at first, especially Wan Qian and Zhou Sulan. Although Hua Wanning also cared for Sun Qingxue, if she had to choose between the sect and Yang Chen's life, she was still willing to choose Yang Chen. It was not that Sun Qingxue did not maintain the sect, but that she would not harm Yang Chen's life for some improper interests of the sect. That was all. These branches of the Penglai divine wood were enough to make some people in the sect jealous. At least that's what Sun Qingxue thought, so she immediately became a little careful. It doesn't matter, it's not a big deal. Yang Chen was happy and naturally would not treat Sun Qingxue badly. If you have time, you can be refined and absorbed by these branches. It is just right to consolidate your current realm. Taking out these branches was to let Sun Qingxue consolidate her realm. The spiritual power of the same origin was a great supplement for Sun Qingxue. With these branches, at least it could shorten the time for Sun Qingxue to consolidate her realm by half. Yang Chen's words and these branches of the Penglai divine wood, Sun Qingxue naturally regarded them as Yang Chen's care for herself. Although she was a little guilty, she still put it away happily. She had already made up her mind. Even if it was her master, she would not tell her what Yang Chen gave her. He hadn't seen Sun Qingxue for decades, and now there were no outsiders here. Yang Chen naturally had to take a good look at Sun Qingxue. I don't know how Sun Qingxue has been doing these years. Yang Chen has seen a trace of the shadow of the dancing snow fairy in Sun Qingxue's heroic posture. As if she knew that Yang Chen was looking at her, the little girl was very mischievous and put on a face of those annoying young handsome men who pestered her and refused to let people go 1,000 miles away. This face was simply the iconic expression of the dancing snow fairy in the memory of Yang Chen's previous life. For a time, countless memories came to his mind, and Yang Chen seemed to be stunned. Sun Qingxue was very happy that Yang Chen would look at her in a daze, which fully showed that she still had an extraordinary attraction to Yang Chen. Yang Chen's performance made Sun Qingxue even happier than his 10,000 words. For a while, she had condensed Dan and received a gift from Yang Chen. Coupled with Yang Chen's current performance, Sun Qingxue felt that she had good luck today. 3 happy days. After not seeing each other for decades, Sun Qingxue had a lot of things to say to Yang Chen. At Sun Qingxue's place, Yang Chen, of course, would not drink tea as he did at Shi Shanshan's side. Instead, he took out a large pot of jade dragon wine and a large plate of peeled profound yang fruit. The little girl was born in an official's family. She had a good capacity for alcohol and could drink some. Yang Chen and the two of them, in the small courtyard of Sun Qingxue, used the flesh of the millennium profound yang fruit as a side dish to accompany the wine. They slowly sipped the jade dragon wine that Jiu Xian did not know how much information to exchange for. While drinking, they chatted with each other about their experiences over the past few decades. Sun Qingxue was really happy today. She told Yang Chen about what she had done after Yang Chen left and went back to retreat to attack the Jidan stage. From the experience of going out to experience to coming back to retreat to condensed Dan, even some small things were described in detail. These words Sun Qingxue has never said to anyone, including her master Hua Wanning. Now in the face of Yang Chun, these were like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube. All of them were said. Chapter 635. From the beginning of her cultivation, Sun Qingxue was a lively little girl. But in the Blue Cloud sect, she first encountered the conspiracy of Wan Qian's master and apprentice, and later she worshipped Elder Hua as a master. Although the conditions were already unique, the little girl did not have a friend of the same age who could confide in her heart, except for Yang Chun. In addition to telling her own experience, Sun Qingxue was also the first time that she had talked about her happiness and depression in her 100 years of cultivation in front of others. When she said this, it was like venting, and she could no longer stop. With the strength of the Jade Dragon wine, Sun Qingxue almost kept talking for a few hours, but she was still not done. Yang Chun did not stop Sun Qingxue from venting like this, but listened quietly and sometimes echoed a few words, letting her vent completely. These things were depressed in the heart for a long time, and it was easy to become a heart devil. Of course, it was not a big problem to still be in the Jidan stage, but once it broke out during the tribulation of the nascent soul stage, it would be a big trouble. On the contrary, she poured out her heart to Yang Chun. Whether it was the pressure in her heart or the happiness, all of them found an outlet to vent. In a fashionable saying, such a vent, the thoughts suddenly became clear, which was of great benefit to cultivation. After a few hours, Sun Qingxue also drank a lot of Jade Dragon wine unconsciously. Especially at the last moment, Yang Chun felt that the time was almost right, and Sun Qingxue had vented enough. He directly used a large glass of 4C's mysterious coral liquid to reconcile a drop of distiller's yeast and let Sun Qingxue drink it, and instantly let Sun Qingxue fall asleep. Holding the charming body of the dancing snow fairy, Yang Chun sent Sun Qingxue back to her boudoir embroidered couch, and then notified the maid who had been sent away by Sun Qingxue to take care of her. Looking at the beautiful Sun Qingxue in her sleep, Yang Chun suddenly envied her. At least the dancing snow fairy could find him to talk about her troubles and happiness, but he couldn't find someone to talk to. The secret of rebirth was the biggest secret of Yang Chun in the world, and it must not be easily known by anyone, even his master. He didn't want his master to panic because of knowing this secret, and maybe even help him to deal with the Taishaman. Although in the future, if Chunyang Palace and Taishaman met, his master would definitely be duty-bound, but at this time, Yang Chun would rather face it alone. Sun Qingxue had this talk, coupled with the last glass of the 4C's mysterious coral liquid. After waking up, her mind was clear and her body was clean. After waking up, with the branch of Ponlai Divine wood sent by Yang Chun, her of cultivation could definitely be consolidated. He came here to see Sun Qingxue and congratulate her on her success in condensing her dan. Now that the goal had been exceeded, Yang Chun had no reason to stay any longer. After giving a few words to Sun Qingxue's servant, Yang Chun didn't even say goodbye to Elder Hua and left the Blue Cloud sect. Anyway, Sect Master Lu wanted to go to Chunyang Palace. At that time, he would definitely bring Sun Qingxue. Yang Chun and Sun Qingxue would have a chance to see each other again. Yang Chun didn't care about such a moment of getting along. There would be a long time in the future. The famous dancing snow fairy in the later generations was like a little girl talking to him. If this was said in his previous life, no one would believe it. But in this life, it happened not long ago, making Yang Chun have an unreal feeling. If the dancing snow fairy was like this, then what about the cold plum fairy who was cold all day? With a frosty face every day, maybe she had accumulated a lot of complex emotions. Yang Chun wondered if he should find an opportunity to help Shi Shanshan. Of course, this was just Yang Chun's own sudden idea, and it was not operable at all. Shi Shanshan was not Sun Qingxue, this little girl, who had such a dependence on Yang Chun. However, there was nothing to do. Sitting with Shi Shanshan and tasting tea, it seemed to be a wonderful enjoyment. Suppressing these thoughts, Yang Chun drove the shuttle and went straight to Chunyang Palace. From the last time he left the sect to the present, it had been 6 years. In Yang Chun's heart, he could not help but think of the faces of his master and senior sister, And then he naturally thought of the charming scene when his master and senior sister were cultivating with him. On the road for another month, Yang Chun once again saw the familiar scene of the Chunyang Palace gate. The first thing Yang Chun did when he returned to Chunyang Palace was to go directly to his master's courtyard to meet his master. What Yang Chun didn't expect was that his master Gao Yu was not there. After inquiring from the servants, he learned that his master and senior sister actually went out together in the 3rd year of his experience. It was said that they went out to experience after their cultivation was consolidated. His master and senior sister were not there, so Yang Chun could only go to see the head of the palace first. He accepted Mu Bo as a disciple, and this matter must be reported to the head of the palace. Moreover, the Mu Bo family had all joined the Chunyang Palace. This matter must also be known by the head of the palace. Otherwise, wouldn't it be strange if there were more than 100 people from the Hall of Eccentrics in the Chunyang Palace? There was no obstacle for Yang Chun to go to the head of the palace. Not everyone could see the head of the palace. Yang Chun could come to him at any time, even when the head of the palace was in retreat. This was the special instruction of the head of the palace. Of course, Yang Chun would not look for the head of the palace to visit when he was in retreat. After the ceremony, Yang Chun was about to report, but he was stopped by the head of the palace. The palace master had already sent people to invite several elders. It was not too late to wait for the elders to arrive before talking about Yang Chun's matter, so as not to have to say it for the 2nd time. This was the experience of the head of the palace after several times. Every time Yang Chun came back from the outside, there was a major event. Except for some secrets that could not be said to others, it was necessary for the palace master and the elders to discuss it together. Therefore, now that Yang Chun wanted to report, naturally he had to wait for the elders to arrive first. Except for Wang Yong, who was in retreat, the other elders were all here. When they saw Yang Chun, the elders naturally accepted Yang Chun's salute, and then they sat down. Say, what good things have happened this time? The head of the palace waited for everyone to be ready. Then he ordered with a smile on his face, but he crossed his legs and prepared to listen. The other elders also followed suit. They all put on a comfortable posture, waiting for Yang Chun to surprise them again. The last time the Taishaman happened, everyone had already vaguely guessed something. At that time, everyone was happy, and now it was estimated that they were waiting for a miracle to appear. The elders were all in such a posture, which made Yang Chun a little dumbfounded. But he couldn't blame anything. They were all elders, and it was not his turn to point fingers. He could only respectfully say, "This disciple went out and received an apprentice. The aptitude is excellent, absolutely worthy of training." Chapter 636. Oh, you actually accepted a disciple? As soon as Yang Chun's words came out, the interest of the elders suddenly rose, and they asked one after another, especially Zhu Chuntao, almost like a confession, "Quickly say it. Where is your disciple's origin? What is his name? What is his attribute? What is his aptitude?" And still not quickly say it. The disciple who could let Yang Chun take a fancy to must be absolutely a good talent. When Yang Chun was a disciple in the Yeshio Villa, he was famous for his unique vision, and his guidance made people speechless. The disciple that Yang Chun accepted naturally made everyone curious. The disciple that this disciple received is named Mu Bo, a cypress tree demon. Yang Chun did not conceal it, and there was nothing to hide. The origin of Mu Bo could be seen when they met, and there was no need to hide it at all. It was found in the extreme north of the monster plane. The aptitude is absolutely excellent, and may even be equal with the dancing snow fairy. The cypress became a demon. Naturally, it was a wood attribute. This everyone did not need to ask, and Yang Chun did not need to answer at all. Tree demon. Everyone was stunned, but they did not think that the first disciple of Yang Chun was not a cultivator, but a tree demon. However, everyone was just a little surprised, but there was no rejection. Now the first master of Chunyang Palace, Gue Shanyu, the hall master of the Hall of Eccentrics, was an osmanthus tree demon. Everyone knew that the tree demon was powerful. Yang Chun chose a cypress demon as an apprentice, and it was not unacceptable. The aptitude of the dancing snow fairy is equal. This sentence made everyone a little surprised. The dancing snow fairy's son Qingshue's reputation in recent years has been great, and it has faintly caught up with the cold plum fairy Shi Shanshan. If it was not because of the limitation of her cultivation base, she would definitely be on par with Shi Shanshan. This Mubo unexpectedly has such a good aptitude. Now everyone in Chunyang Palace has accepted the existence of the Hall of Eccentrics and accepted living in the same sect with these monster races. If Mubo really has such an outstanding talent, it would definitely be a great event for Chunyang Palace. Maybe it's more than that. Yang Chan smiled and said, "After all, it is the first wood demon. The attribute is pure, and the natural wood body, specializing in the first wood cultivation method, it will not necessarily be worse than the dancing snow fairy. Your vision is naturally not wrong. But where is the person? Let me see him," Gao Shiyin asked with a smile. Such a genius disciple. Everyone was interested. That this disciple has not brought him back to the sect for the time being. Yang Chun hurriedly replied. In addition, Mubo's family, more than 100 cypresses, the strongest peak Jidan stage cultivation base, have now all promised to join my sect's Hall of Eccentrics and have already made a monster soul oath. This disciple, and they agreed to bring them back to the sect after 30 years, and I came to report to the elders. More than 100 cypresses? Everyone's eyes lit up. Everyone knew the power of the tree monsters. More than 100 cypresses, if they really grew up, it would be a big force. Unfortunately, my Chunyang Palace does not have a particularly suitable cultivation method for the tree monsters. Otherwise, they will be cultivated carefully, and later it will be a force of my sect. Elder Gung Hong of the sect Scriptures Pavilion seemed to feel a little pity and couldn't help but sigh. The monster race's cultivation method, Chunyang Palace has no other for the time, being except for a transformation secret art. This point was well known to everyone, so the sigh of Elder Gung Hong was exactly what everyone felt regretful about. This disciple is not talented. This time I went to the Monster Beast Plain. In an Immortal's cave of the monster race, I bought several cultivation methods suitable for the tree monsters to cultivate. From the low-level foundation laying cultivation method to the high-level advanced cultivation method, there are also cultivation methods to increase spiritual awareness. Listening to the sighs of the elders, Yang Chun snorted and said these words. Oh! As soon as these words came out, Elder Gung Hong's eyes suddenly lit up. Really? Elder Gung couldn't help but believe it. The monster race had never heard of a systematic cultivation method. Yang Chun actually got a set of cultivation methods from low to high, which was incredible. Before leaving, this disciple has taught Mu Bo and his people to cultivate. Yang Chun did not directly answer, but gave a positive answer with this answer. This time, Hall Master Gue has a good thing. Elder Gung breathed a sigh of relief. Everyone was clear about Gue Shanyo's power, and this was still without any special cultivation method. If there was the high-level cultivation method that Yang Chan said, didn't it mean that the strength of Chunyang Palace would be more powerful? What do you mean by the monster race's Immortal's Cave? The head of the palace was more concerned about the banyan tree Immortal's Cave. When did the monster race have their own Immortal's Cave and inheritance? This was a major event. It was related to all the cultivators. The head of the palace could not help but be cautious. Of course, he had to ask clearly. Next, Yang Chun naturally talked about the banyan tree Immortal's Cave in the 10,000 Trees Forest. Of course, it was only limited to the part on the ground. The first wood true essence spiritual solution was of great importance, so Yang Chun did not mention it much. Listening to the monster race actually had an Immortal's Cave suitable for cultivation, and it was also organized by the monster race of the Deshang realm for systematic cultivation. Everyone was even more stunned. Since there is such a cultivation method, why don't you buy a few more by the cultivation methods of Shi Kue, Xie Sha, and the several Yuanying realm masters in the Immortal's Cave? Gung Hong immediately asked after listening. With such an opportunity, how could Yang Chen not seize it? It would not be so easy to go to the banyan tree Immortal's Cave in the future. I bought it, Yang Chen replied with a bitter smile. I bought all of Shi Kue and Xie Sha's. Other people, this disciple also guaranteed to have a cultivation method. Well, that's more like it. Elder Gung finally nodded with satisfaction and casually praised him. Yang Chun, this disciple, had a watertight way of doing things. However, as an elder of the Hidden Scriptures Pavilion, Elder Gung still habitually came out with a sentence. If you can get a copy of the Monster Race Cultivation Method Inheritance in the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave, it would be good. In this way, my Chunyang Palace will be the first sect that the monster race wants to rely on. It's a pity. Listening to Elder Gung's words, other elders, including the head of the palace, shook their heads for a while. How could there be such an easy thing? Not to mention whether this was possible or not. If they really took a copy, it was estimated that Chunyang Palace could become the focus of the Dao sects in the blink of an eye and be put on the fire. However, the more the head of the palace looked, the more he felt that Yang Chun was smiling bitterly. Why was he smiling bitterly? Was it because of the pity that Elder Gung had just said? The head of the palace couldn't help but frown and asked, Yang Chun, what is that expression of yours? This. Yang Chun said this twice. A little guilty raised his head, glanced at the head of the palace, and smiled. All the cultivation methods inheritance. This disciple accidentally got a copy. Chapter 637. Boom! Yang Chen's words directly ignited the entire top level of the Chunyang Palace. The head of the palace was shocked. Even if he was now in the hall of the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave, the palace master still felt that it was not safe enough. He waved his hand and laid a few restrictions, adding a few more layers of insurance to the sound that had been isolated. He stood up and asked, What did you say? This disciple was not careful and brought back a copy of the inheritance of the monster race. Yang Chun did not have the kind of guilty conscience that he had just had. These were originally going to be told to the elders. Didn't he say it before Elder Gung already asked about it? How is it possible? The calm head of the palace couldn't help but widen his eyes at this moment and say this sentence. The other elders looked at Yang Chun dumbfounded, as if they were looking at a monster. Crash! Yang Chun no longer explained in detail. He directly took the 8 boxes from the hands of the second city, lord out of the merit ring, and placed them in front of the elders. The box was opened, and it was full of jade slips. No one could hold back. Each of them reached out and grabbed a few pieces of jade slips from the box, and their spiritual awareness directly explored it. Then there was a surprised expression on their faces. Everyone picked up a few pieces of the jade slips in the box and scanned them one by one. It was not that everyone did not believe in Yang Chen's words, but Yang Chen's words were too amazing. He even directly brought back the inheritance of the monster race. This thing was really incredible. In the end, everyone finally confirmed that these jade slips were indeed the various cultivation methods of the monster race, in addition to alchemy and refining techniques and so on. With these 8 boxes, it could almost be said that 99% of the monster race in the world could find a suitable cultivation method here. Quick, go and inform the disciples in the Immortal's Cave. Don't kill the monsters in the Immortal's Cave in the future. Elder Gung was the first to react and hurriedly shouted at the head of the palace. With his voice, everyone suddenly understood that since there was a full set of cultivation methods here, the monsters raised in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave will be the most convenient object to supplement the strength of the Chunyang Palace Hall of Eccentrics. It will be a pity to kill them. The head of the palace could not care about other things at this time, and his body disappeared in place. The Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's Cave was now under the control of the head of the palace. At this time, he even asked the disciples in the Immortal's Cave. After a while, the figure of the head of the palace appeared again, but the joy on his face could no longer be concealed. No one knew better than the actual controller of the Immortal's Cave how many monsters were in the Immortal's Cave. You must know that these were the future disciples of the Pure Yang Palace. With so many disciples, how could he not let the head of the palace smile? Tell me, how did you get these things? When the palace master Zhang Jiao came back, he directly asked a question that everyone was curious about. Everyone was wondering. Even if they could buy cultivation methods in the Banyan Tree Cave, the price was too high. It was impossible for Yang Chun to buy all these cultivation methods. Yang Chun said, the elders of the elders, the immortals Chen's IMS. It's a long story. Yang Chun used a very unkind opening remark. After the palace master stared at him, he talked about the conflict with the second city master. Of course, the real reason for the conflict was naturally concealed by Yang Chun. It was replaced by the second city master who coveted the magic weapon on Yang Chen's body. So he moved his mind to follow and wanted to kill and rob. However, these statements were not wrong, but the number of magic weapons coveted was somewhat different. As soon as they heard that Yang Chun was stared at by a master of the Deshang stage, everyone's eyes were stunned. Did Yang Chun have a grudge against a master of the Deshang stage? How could he be noticed by a master of the Deshang stage? Then, quickly say it. After Yang Chun finished speaking, the Yuanying stage master paused and was immediately urged by the curious elders. Yang Chun could only slightly change the plot. He changed the second city master's fainting because he put a spiritual awareness mark on himself into a bloody river. He changed the spiritual awareness mark into a fainting because of the monster power crystal left by Lanning. They all fainted, and the ending did not change, so no one questioned this. A master of the Deshang stage was killed by you in a coma. Elder Zhu Chuntao was speechless at Yang Chen's words, and he always felt a little incredible. Others also had the same feeling. That was a master of the Deshang stage. How could it be possible for him to faint and kill him? There was no way. Yang Chun could only release the complete body of the second city master. As soon as the body of a few hundred feet came out, it occupied more than half of the space in the hall. Looking at the body of the goshawk that exuded a strong aura even after death, the palace master and the elders couldn't believe their eyes. This was the body of a Deshang stage monster. In their lives, how many times had they seen a master of the Deshang stage? In front of them was the body of a master of the Deshang stage, and it was killed by a junior in the Jedon stage of their own sect. Even if they looked at the body, everyone had a very unreal feeling. A little guy in the early Jedon stage killed a master of the Deshang stage? No matter who you tell, others will think that you're mentally ill and your brain is abnormal. If there was a reaction, it must be a very serious sentence. Young people, don't think about it. Is this kind of thing possible? But now this is it possible must be changed to certainly. Everyone couldn't help but believe it, but the complete body was placed in front of them, and even a monster core was incomparably complete. Was there anything more convincing than this? What were you thinking at the time? Were you planning to take these inheritance information from him from the beginning? The palace master took a long breath and seemed to spit out the series of shocks in his heart and directly asked Yang Chun. At that time, he wanted to kill me, and I also tried to kill him, but I didn't know that he had such a good thing. Yang Chun said on this matter, moreover, although Master also has a praying mantis puppet to protect his body, after all, the speed is a bit slow. This corpse of the Deshang stage can be refined into a puppet, which can help Master fly faster. Yang Chen's words once again made everyone's eyes roll. In order to let his master fly faster, Yang Chen actually had the idea of killing a master of the Deshang stage. This couldn't be helped but be said that it was an unusually crazy move. Why do you say so much? Are you afraid that we will rob the benefits of your master? This kid, the head of the palace master, was really a ginger that was still spicier. In one sentence, he said Yang Chen's careful thoughts. I'm not still pointing to the elders to help refine it. Yang Chen smiled and played a rogue. Anyway, his seniority was the youngest, and he had this qualification to act shamelessly. Chapter 638. Indeed, the corpse of a Deshang stage monster, with Gao Yu's current strength in the Jedon stage, was far from being able to refine. To successfully refine it, at least the strength of the late Yuanying stage or peak Yuanying stage could be completed. Moreover, even with the strength of the peak Yuanying stage, refining a Deshang stage monster puppet was a protracted process, which was not at the same level as refining a Yuanying stage puppet. Senior brother Wang Jiao has been in retreat for a long time. He should be almost at the Deshang stage. This time, the head of the palace did not fall into Yang Chen's trap and directly pushed the matter to Yang Chen's master ancestor, Gao Yu's master Wang Yong, refining the puppet. It is better to give it to him. Anyway, it is for his own apprentice. Wang Yong has been in retreat for decades. Before the retreat, he brought at least 5-second grade questioning inner heart pills. With Yang Chen's hint, the head of the palace also knew that these things were not as precious as imagined. Naturally, he was happy to let Wang Yong bring a few more, so that he could be more sure. In 10 years at most, Wang Yong would be able to break through the realm of the peak Yuanying stage and enter the Deshang stage. This was Yang Chen's estimation. In this regard, the head of the palace was also well aware, so now he would tease him like this. The elders also knew that Wang Yong's retreat was to attack the Deshang stage, but they were not as confident as Yang Chun and the head of the palace. Now that they heard the words of the head of the palace, they were a little surprised. However, in addition to the surprise, everyone was still happy. If there was another master of the Deshang stage in the Chunyang Palace, it would definitely be a great thing. The body of the second city master was still collected by Yang Chun, but the jade slips that recorded the inheritance of the monster race were handed over to the sect, so that the sect began to copy and classify them. Elder Gung Hong also supervised the affairs of the Martial Research Hall. These classifications and analysis of whether they were helpful to the cultivation of human cultivators were naturally handed over to him. Of course, all those who could participate were the core disciples of the Chunyang Palace. Next, Yang Chun reported the preliminary agreement with Sect Master Liu of the Blue Cloud Sect to the head of the palace and the elders. Since this kind of cooperation has been done with the Green Jade Immortal Island once, and the Blue Cloud Sect also provided their own medicinal materials, and they also had close cooperation with Chunyang Palace in the 100,000 Mountains, it was naturally not a problem. For the sect and Yang Chun, this was a good thing, and everyone knew that if they had the same conditions as the Green Jade Immortal Island, not only could the sect get most of the benefits of the 100,000 Mountains, but they also believed that Yang Chun could produce a lot of questioning inner heart pills for Chunyang Palace in the refining process. As for the matter of Yang Chun finding the 8th metal true secret art for Blue Cloud Sect, since Yang Chun swore not to spread it, he naturally concealed it here. At this point, Yang Chun had finished explaining his experiences in the outside world. Next, it was time for everyone to discuss and deal with some things. The Blue Cloud Sect's affairs were the easiest to deal with. It was very easy to deal with them according to the Green Jade Immortal Island. Even Yang Chin's remuneration had not changed. It was the same fire seed of the 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade, as long as the two sides were not the same. Now the most troublesome thing was the cultivation inheritance of the monster race. If it was just a reference, there was absolutely no big problem. The key was that with the rapid development of Chunyang Palace, the number of disciples had greatly expanded, and with the existence of the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave, it was more than enough to have 10 times the number of disciples. Originally, the number was small. If the monster race joined, it was definitely an opportunity to strengthen their strength. But the problem was, once the monster race joined, how would other Dao sects view it? The news that Chunyang Palace had these cultivation inheritance could not be hidden. If other sects also came to ask for it, would they give it or not? If they gave it, Chunyang Palace was naturally unwilling. If they didn't give it, they would greatly offend people. Moreover, a large number of monster race joining the sect, which was unprecedented. For Chunyang Palace, it may be an unprecedented opportunity, but it may also be a huge trouble. After all, humans and monsters were different. It would take time for the cultivators to accept the monster race to join the big sect. This problem must be faced, and it must be faced. In addition, the first city lord of the Banyan Tree Immortals Cave did not know the identity of Yang Chun. If Chunyang Palace had a monster race cultivation inheritance, it meant that Yang Chen's identity was exposed. It was likely that Yang Chun would have to face the pursuit of a Deshang stage monster race and countless Yuanying stage monster race. If the first city lord was willing to make those things public, maybe there would be a powerful guy like the Old Tree Demon who lived in seclusion in the mountains and did not care about the world. Unless Yang Chun stayed in the Pure Yang Palace for a lifetime, he would not necessarily be able to keep him safe. These problems added up really gave the head of the palace and the elders a headache. Everyone was very optimistic about the increase in the strength of the sect by joining the monster race. Even a monster race was more reliable than human cultivators because of the monster soul oath. However, thinking of those problems, there was no good solution for a while. They wanted to seize the opportunity to revitalize Chunyang Palace, but they were afraid that they could not bear the huge pressure. This was the contradiction between the head of the palace and the elders. Actually, this disciple thinks that these problems are not too big. As long as it takes a while, there will naturally be a solution. After Yang Chun listened for a while and saw everyone frowning, Yang Chun slowly opened his mouth. Yang Chun's words immediately focused everyone's eyes on him. No one understood why Yang Chun said this. There would be a solution after a while. What was the solution? What do you mean by this? The head of the palace raised his eyebrows, and his eyes, which were originally worried into a line, suddenly burst out. Yang Chun was not the kind of guy who shot without a goal. Since he said there was a way, there must be a way. Palace Master, elders, in fact, what needs to be strengthened most now is not our Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun said with a smile, but another sect. Taishaman. The head of the palace immediately thought of this and said it. Compared with the small-scale expansion of Chunyang Palace, the last time the Taishaman Mountain Gate was destroyed, that was the biggest loss. Even if dozens of small sect and rogue cultivator alliances were connected, they could not immediately restore the original strength. The eyes of the elders also suddenly lit up. According to Yang Chen's hint, the Taishaman were the most in need of strengthening their strength, and according to the normal method, if they wanted to restore the heyday of the Taishaman, it would take at least 100 years to speak. But now, how could the Taishaman use 100 years to restore their vitality? Almost all the other major sect had dissatisfaction with the Taishaman. During this time, they would take advantage of their illness to kill them. Even if they did not confront the Taishaman, they would find ways to drag the Taishaman down. Chapter 639. Under such circumstances, it was not so easy for Taishaman to regain their vitality in a short time. It could only be done in other ways. The fastest way was to recruit a large number of disciples. However, people with cultivation qualifications were not monopolized by Taishaman, so Taishaman needed to expand their strength through other channels. The demon sects and the monster race were the targets they needed to consider. Dao, demon, and monster coexisted, but Dao and demon were incompatible. Taishaman would never find people from the demon sects to enrich their own sect. From a perspective of cultivation, Dao and demon were simply the opposite, and there was no possibility of integration. Moreover, cooperating with the demon sects was inconsistent with the image of the Taishaman as the leader of the Dao sects, so Taishaman would certainly not consider the demon sects. The monster race was much simpler. In fact, the so-called beheading of the demon sects was to protect the Dao, so there was the saying of beheading the demon sects. However, beheading the demon sects was to hone their cultivation, not to say that humans and demons were incompatible, and there had never been any saying of beheading the demon sects. Therefore, if the Taishaman wanted to expand their strength quickly, they could only start with a monster race. This was also the only way for the Taishaman. In Yang Chen's previous life, the Hall of Eccentrics was first created by the Taishaman. At first, it was actually to lay a foreshadowing for winning over the monster race. After establishing a foothold and letting the Dao sects basically accept it, it did not take long for the Taishaman to begin recruiting the monster race. However, at that time, the Taishaman did not have such a good excuse and opportunity as Yang Chun. At first, they were opposed by many Dao sects. The Taishaman relied on their strong strength and finally spent decades to let everyone except the monster race to join the sect's Hall of Eccentrics. In this life, because of Yang Chun, Chunyang Palace was the first to have a Hall of Eccentrics, and the excuse was very reasonable, making people unable to pick out any problems. The spiritual beast guarding the mountain, breaking through to the Yuanying stage, was just given a title which was reasonable. In particular, not long after, he happened to encounter the great tribulation of the demonic arts. In that battle, the old tree monster Gai Shanyu protected many Yuanying stage masters of the Dao sects and won a lot of praise, so he was able to successfully stand firm. But for the time being, there were only 3 people in the Hall of Eccentrics of Chunyang Palace, and there was no plan to expand it. This was the real reason why all the sect members accepted it, since they had learned from the mistakes of Chunyang Palace. It was believed that the Taishamen would soon turn their attention to the demon clan. It wouldn't be long before the Taishamen's Hall of Eccentrics was established. After all, it was the largest sect of the Dao sects, and its heritage was extraordinary. The problem of the cultivation method that the head of the palace and the elders worried about was not a big deal in Taishamen. For so many years, the Taishamen had killed countless powerful demons under the guise of slaying demons. It was certain that they had a large number of demon cultivation methods in their hands. After understanding this point, the problem of the cultivation method that everyone was worried about was no longer a problem. Did other sect members want the cultivation method? The Taishamen were the first to get it, so they should ask them for it. Don't look at the fact that the Taishamen had just suffered a catastrophe. But after all, they were still Taishamen. Even the Blue Cloud sect and the Green Jade Immortal Island, such a big sect, did not do anything. If other sect members wanted to go to Taishamen to ask for the cultivation method, who would dare? Since the Taishamen were fine, Chunyang Palace only needed to follow the rules, and there was no need for the second one to take the lead. When there were more imitations of the sect, they would naturally follow and recruit the monster race. What problem would there be? The Taishamen had the channel for the Taishamen to get the monster race cultivation method, and the Chunyang Palace naturally had the channel for the Chunyang Palace. They couldn't just come to the door to ask for it, right? This was the inheritance of the sect. It was meaningless to use the pretense of righteousness. Coming to the door to ask for it was equivalent to asking others to hand over the secret knowledge of the sect. Chunyang Palace was no longer the Chunyang Palace of the past. With the Blue Cloud sect, the Green Jade Immortal Island, and the Beast Taming sect as allies, it was by no means a soft persimmon that could be pinched. There were 4 masters of the Deshang stage in the 100,000 mountains. Weren't they uprooted by several allies of the Chunyang Palace? The Luo family had a master of the late Deshang stage, Luo Yuan. Wasn't the Chunyang Palace also annihilated? Before making a move on the Chunyang Palace, even the Taishamen must now carefully weigh it. Anyway, there were Taishamen in front of everything, and the Chunyang Palace was a big tree to enjoy the shade. It was logical to expand their own strength, and others had nothing to say. At that time, with the example of the old tree demon and Shi Kuei and Xie Sha, plus the systematic cultivation methods, wouldn't it be the same for many monster cultivators? The monster cultivators were the monster cultivators. They were not fools who was good and who was bad. Naturally, they could distinguish. He didn't know what kind of expression the Taishamen would have when they learned that Yang Chun had received their future master of the Hall of Eccentrics. Of course, they would never know, and Yang Chun could only be secretly happy in the back. In this way, it seemed that the problem that everyone was worried about was no longer a problem. The only one left was the first city lord of the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave. As for the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave, Yang Chun dragged his voice a little and observed the faces of the elders around him. He slowly said, "There is only one Deshang stage master left. Since there are 4 masters of the Deshang stage and the 100,000 mountains can become our territory, then the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave, probably." Later, Yang Chun said a few ambiguous words, and each of them was said slowly and dragged for a long time, as if he was tempting these elders. Sure enough, as Yang Chen expected, when Yang Chen's words slowly came out, the expressions on the faces of the elders changed from the calmness that they had just solved the problem to thinking, looking forward to it, eagerness, and finally, everyone's face was full of longing, and their eyes began to shine. Yes, there was only one master of the Deshang stage, and the 4 Deshang stage masters of the 100,000 mountains were destroyed. How could a city lord be put in his heart? If Elder Wang Yong succeeded in crossing the tribulation this time and entered the Deshang stage, then Chunyang Palace would have 2 masters of the Deshang stage. With a large number of people, would they be afraid of not being able to take down a city lord? Even if it was a little safer, with a few questioning inner heart pills, to hire a few masters of the Deshang stage among the row cultivators, The Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave could almost be said to be in the bag of Chunyang Palace. This disciple also found the secret technique to control the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave on the body of the second city lord. Yangchen saw that everyone was already tempted and once again added a heavy bargaining chip. In fact, this secret technique was left by the original owner of the Immortal's Cave. How could the second city lord have it? Seeing that Yang Chun took out a jade slip and handed it to the head of the palace, needless to say, it must be the secret technique to control the Immortal's Cave that Yang Chun said. This matter, I think it's okay. Elder Meng Xian of the Law Enforcement Hall directly said his own thoughts. Chapter 640. Before the incident in the 100,000 Mountains, Yang Chun also asked in front of the elders whether it was worth fighting for. Now, it seemed that the scene of that year had reappeared. Of course, the elders were tempted. With the secret art to control the Banyan Tree Cave and the inheritance of the cultivation method, it also meant that they could easily take the Banyan Tree Cave and the hundreds of thousands of monster cultivators in it as their own. It must be known that the Chunyang Palace had only just reached the scale of more than 100,000 people, which was the result of vigorous expansion in recent decades. If hundreds of thousands of fresh troops were suddenly added, even if the unqualified guys were excluded, the strength of the sect would also increase exponentially. Of course, the power of the monster race surpassed that of human cultivators, which was by no means what the master of the palace and the elders wanted to see. However, even if all the monster cultivators were not pulled to the Chunyang Palace, just controlling the business in the Banyan Tree Cave could bring several times the spiritual awareness to the Chunyang Palace and dozens of times the income of the 100,000 mountains every year. The 100,000 mountains were only tens of thousands of miles, but the Banyan Tree Cave directly radiated to the surrounding tens of thousands of miles. The difference in the territory was not known by how many times. Not to mention that it was almost the only place where the surrounding monster cultivators did business. The huge benefits, needless to say, to see it with their own eyes, just thinking about it made them drool. The most important thing was that this Banyan Tree Cave had been hidden extremely deeply. Except for Yang Chun, no human cultivator had discovered it so far. The monster cultivators who entered the cave had made a monster soul oath that they would never easily reveal the secrets of the Banyan Tree Cave. Such a secret treasure was now placed in front of everyone in the Chunyang Palace. Not to mention the elders. Even the master of the palace was eager. This matter must be considered in the long run. After all, the master of the palace was still the master of the palace. Although he was tempted, he also knew that it was of great importance. And before Wang Yang's tribulation, these things could not be planned. So he still suppressed the impulse and considered it in the long run. It didn't matter if it was a long run, as long as there was a plan. In the beginning, Yang Chun did not intend to do anything to the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave. It was only because he thought about the things that would happen after the Taishaman's expansion that he took out the magic formula to control the Banyan Tree Immortal's Cave. Originally, the secret technique was left by the original owner of the Immortal's Cave to Yang Chun to collect the first wood true essence. Unexpectedly, it could bring such benefits to the Chunyang Palace. Yang Chun would never complain about too many benefits, and the same was true of Chunyang Palace. Since the problem that they were worried about no longer existed, there was no need for them to frown and discuss the solution to the problem. Thus, the Elder Council was dismissed. Yang Chun, what are you going to do next? Palace Master Zhang Jiao casually asked Yang Chun before everyone left. This question made all the elders who were about to leave stop and wait for Yang Chun's answer. Their disciple, Yang Chun, had never given them much care, but he always brought them a pleasant surprise. The whereabouts of Yang Chun, especially the safety of Yang Chun, was now the most concerned thing for everyone. However, since Yang Chun could even kill the second city master of the Deshang stage without any scars on his body, basically on this issue, everyone was also unanimously relaxed. Therefore, Yang Chun's plan was particularly curious. Was he planning to travel again? Or was he planning to stay in the sect for a period of time? Everyone wanted to know. Blue Cloud Sect's sect master Lu may visit in the near future. and it is related to this disciple. This disciple is not rude, so I will wait in the sect." Yang Chun thought about it and replied, "And this disciple got a pill recipe from the monster race, just to test it. In addition, I also want to refine the questioning inner heart pill of the Green Jade Immortal Island and exchange it for this disciple's fire seed, so that I can cultivate." He would stay in the sect and wait for the Blue Cloud Sect's sect master Lu, and then refine the pill. This arrangement was good. In the sect, Yang Chen's safety did not need to worry, and refining the pill could also promote the cooperation with the Green Jade Immortal Island again. The exchange for the fire seed was also conducive to Yang Chen's cultivation. This arrangement was good. Everyone was very happy to leave and busy themselves. Yang Chen stayed in the sect and began to prepare the medicinal materials for refining the inner sensing pill. Of course, there was a purpose. Yang Chen said that he would wait in the sect for a period of time. Maybe his master and senior sister would receive the news and rush back. However, after all, the plan was a plan. Yang Chen thought that the Blue Cloud Sect's sect master Lu would visit soon, but he forgot one thing. Since the Blue Cloud Sect got his promise and knew that Chunyang Palace would not refuse, at this time, they were not in a hurry to come to the agreement, but to find medicinal materials first. The Blue Cloud Sect has also studied the questioning inner heart pill. This level of medicinal pill, no big sect would put in their hands. The Blue Cloud Sect, like the Green Jade Immortal Island, let the best alchemy masters in the sect analyze and dismantle it. However, the result disappointed many people. Everyone knew what medicinal materials Yang Chen used to refine the questioning inner heart pill, but no one understood the alchemy technique. It was precisely because of this that the Blue Cloud Sect did not even ask Yang Chen what medicinal materials were needed for the questioning inner heart pill, and they had already begun to prepare. The big sects were really big sects, and their heritage was amazing. Even if Yang Chen used elixirs that were more than 10,000 years old to refine the questioning inner heart pill, the Blue Cloud Sect could still get more than half of it in a short time. However, after all, what Yang Chen needed was 10,000 years old elixirs. Even if it was a big sect, it was not something that could be taken out easily. Not everyone had a powerful medicine garden like Yang Chen. Therefore, the last few medicinal materials, the Blue Cloud Sect still had to spend some time. For this reason, the Blue Cloud Sect also specially sent an elder to explain to Chunyang Palace, and agreed on the date of the visit of the Blue Cloud Sect's sect master. It was temporarily set to be 3 years later. At that time, Elder Hua Wanting, as well as Elder Shi Yinhe, would accompany him, along with Elder Hua Wanting's beloved disciple, Sun Qingxue. In addition to the in-depth cooperation between the two sides, there was another thing to discuss, which was to discuss the marriage between Yang Chen and Sun Qingxue. Because the last time the Lord of Tantai used it to cover up the secret of her trip, she used the marriage between Shi Shanshan and Yang Chen as an excuse, and the Chunyang Palace, naturally, could not overturn it. Therefore, this time, the Chunyang Palace still had to pinch their nose and accept it. The biggest trouble for the palace master was how to get Yang Chen to nod his head. He even deliberately looked for Yang Chen and discussed it with him. Now for Yang Chen, the palace master would not take out the order of the palace master, but would discuss it, even though Yang Chen respected the palace master as always. "I want master to give me a promise." Yang Chen had no good way to deal with this. In this life, Yang Chen had discovered that he had completely fallen in love with his master, and he could not extricate himself. If he could not be with his master, Yang Chen would rather be alone, even if it was destined to hurt Sun Qingxue and Shi Shanshan. Yang Chen would not accept this kind of good thing that was simply a golden pie falling from the sky in the eyes of outsiders. Chapter 641. This was not Yang Chen forcing the head of the palace to press Gao Yu, but his own inner thoughts. If he couldn't let his master make a decision, Yang Chen would rather drag it. Anyway, Shi Shanshan was now recognized by everyone as a Dao companion, but there has been no substantial action. Yang Chen and Shi Shanshan, they just went together for experience once, and then drank tea a few times. In the same way, there was not much contact with Sun Qingxue. All this was because Yang Chen had his master in his heart. The head of the palace certainly understood Yang Chen's mind. In fact, all the high-level officials of Chunyang Palace saw that Yang Chen's feelings for his master, Gao Yu, went beyond the master and apprentice relationship. Everyone understood, but no one pointed it out. Now Yang Chen finally understood that he had to face his feelings for his master directly. Therefore, before his master's affairs were resolved, Yang Chen would not agree to anything. Even if the Chunyang Palace and the Green Jade Immortal Island had already announced the marriage of Yang Chun and Shi Shanshan. Your affairs. Wait for your master to come back and solve it yourself. The head of the palace understood and thought clearly. These things could not be solved by his orders. The only thing he had to do was that if Gao Yu also agreed, then he had to clean up the matter of this master and apprentice and help Gao Yu and Yang Chun bear all the pressure. That was all. Sect Master Lu wanted to postpone the visit, and Yang Chun could refine medicinal pills first. The medicinal materials of the questioning inner heart pill were ready-made. Yang Chun could first complete the transaction with the Green Jade Immortal Island, and then get a batch of fire seeds to improve his strength. If Yang Chun wanted to refine pills, of course, he would not avoid Zhu Qintao. Now Zhu Qintao, who was in the Yuanying stage, already had the strength of a third-grade alchemist master. It's just that he couldn't maintain the success rate, but he was already moving in this direction. In time, he would be able to become a real third-grade alchemist master. For this elder who gave him the profound spirit furnace, Yang Chun was very respectful, and even in the process of mini alchemy, he cooperated with Zhu Qintao. This time refining the questioning inner heart pill, Yang Chun was no exception and once again brought Zhu Qintao. Apart from Zhu Qintao, there was also Yang Chen's former maid, who was now Zhu Qintao's disciple, Helian. Helian has been in the Zhuji phase for decades. Under the cultivation of Yang Chun, she has a brilliant fire-controlling method. Now, she is also in high demand in the medicine hall of Chunyang Palace. Apart from Yang Chun, only Helian could refine the qi-seeking pill. This not only brought her a lot of contribution points from the sect, but it also brought her a lot of spirit stones. With spirit stones, she would naturally be able to purchase more medicinal ingredients for more concoctions. Helian's alchemy level was also improving by leaps and bounds. Helian knew better than anyone where everything came from, so when she saw Yang Chun, she did not change at all because she was now a disciple of the same generation as Yang Chun. She still bowed down. After a simple greeting with Zhu Qintao and his apprentice, Yang Chun began to refine the questioning inner heart pill again. This was the second time that Yang Chun had refined in front of the two, but the two were still very attentive. Any action of Yang Chun must be carefully observed and pondered. The questioning inner heart pill was very important, so Yang Chun was also dedicated to the refining process. He could not directly give them any guidance, and could only wait until the two specifically asked for advice afterwards to explain. But even so, every time the two observed Yang Chen's alchemy, it seemed that they had a new understanding of alchemy. Zhu Qintao thought that he would only be at the peak Jiedan stage in his life, but he didn't expect that he could still form his nascent soul. What he didn't expect was that he could reach the level of the third-grade alchemy master. One day, he might be able to reach the realm of the fourth-grade alchemy master. This has completely exceeded his expectations. This time, he was refining the questioning inner heart pill for the Green Jade Immortal Island, so Yang Chun did not intend to carry out the second-grade refining. The first-grade questioning inner heart pill, Yang Chun had already refined it for the third time, and he was familiar with it. Moreover, his current cultivation base was several times higher than the first refining. The big realm had been upgraded by one stage, and the three kinds of spirit power were naturally faster. When he first refined it, Yang Chun spent a year and 10 months, but this time, Yang Chun only took 1 year to complete the refining process. A furnace of questioning inner heart pills, Yang Chun opened 35, far more than the 20 promised to the Green Jade Immortal Island. When he gave it to the head of the palace, Yang Chun handed all 35 questioning inner heart pills to the head of the palace and let him deal with it himself. He even took out 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills and let the head of the palace give them to the people of the Green Jade Immortal Island. In the end, the head of the palace decided to take out 27 first-grade questioning inner heart pills and 2 second-grade questioning inner heart pills to the green jade Immortal Island. This number was still far more than the promised number, and the quality was higher. This was a strategy that made the green jade Immortal Island pay more attention to Chunyang Palace. The first-grade questioning inner heart pill was already so powerful, so how powerful would the second-grade questioning inner heart pill be? Yang Chen's status among the cultivators would only get higher and higher. If they wanted to continue to cooperate with Yang Chen, they must win over Chunyang Palace. This was the purpose of Yang Chen and the head of the palace. These things were handed over to the head of the palace to deal with, and the head of the palace would naturally use the excess to strive for the greatest benefits. Now, Yang Chen's mind was on the inner sensing pill. The powerful function of the inner sensing pill, Yang Chen had already understood it before. Now that the medicinal materials were complete, Yang Chen opened the furnace again and refined this kind of monster race medicinal pill. Compared with the questioning inner heart pill, the difficulty of the inner sensing pill was almost reduced by at least 3 levels, and even Zhu Chuntao may be able to successfully refine it. However, Yang Chen's pursuit was not only the success of the refining, but at least the second grade. With Yang Chen's current cultivation base, this level of medicinal pill to complete the second-grade refining was relatively safe. Yang Chen also had no intention of breaking through to the third grade. He just wanted to know what the use of the second-grade inner sensing pill would be for human cultivators. The first refining, he was a little rusty. The first-grade refining of the inner sensing pill took Yang Chen half a year. Then, without the slightest pause, Yang Chen directly carried out the second-grade refining. It took another half a year to complete the second-grade refining. After the furnace was opened, Yang Chen got 33 second-grade inner sensing pills. Holding these inner sensing pills, Yang Chen was waiting to take the medicine and experience it immediately. However, when he just came out of the alchemy room, he met Xiao Ming, the master of the fierce Yang Hall. Xiao Ming was also at the peak Jidan stage. Last time, Yang Chen gave him a praying mantis corpse to refine into a puppet, and also gave him 2 thunder pomegranates to let him use to cross the thunder tribulation. But Xiao Ming had not broken through. Until now, he still stayed at the peak Jidan stage. Yang Chen, I recently got stuck at the last level of the Yuanying stage. Do you have any way? Xiao Ming was very sincere in asking for advice. Chapter 642. As the palace master of the fierce Sun Hall, Xiao Ming naturally possessed a fire attribute spiritual root. However, his peaceful personality was incompatible with the fire attribute spirit root. The senior management of Chunyang Palace, including the elders and the hall masters, all knew that Xiao Ming was a nice guy. It was rare to see Xiao Ming take the initiative to offend someone. Even if someone had a dispute with Xiao Ming, it was usually Xiao Ming who gave in. However, Xiao Ming's cultivation was not low. He was at the peak of the gold core realm. Coupled with his nice personality, he was very popular in the sect. This was also one of the reasons why he became the leader of the fierce Sun Hall. According to the memories of Yang Chen's previous life, Xiao Ming would not be able to break through after 200 years, leading to the exhaustion of his lifespan. Then, Gao Yu would become the fierce Yang Hall's hall master. In this life, with Yang Chen, everything seemed to be different. Chunyang Palace was different. Gao Yu was different. The head of the palace was different. The elders were different. And even Xiao Ming had changed. Especially after Yang Chen gave Xiao Ming the corpse of a peak Yuanying stage praying mantis and 2 thunder pomegranates, Xiao Ming's mind changed a little. If he could break through, then so be it. If he couldn't, then it was fate. In the past, Xiao Ming was very open-minded. However, after obtaining these 2 items, his mood was completely different. The thunder pomegranate could help to absorb the power of the thunder tribulation, which also meant that as long as one could enter the stage of the thunder tribulation, there was a great possibility of success in forming a nascent soul. Even if he relied on the thunder pomegranate to absorb a part of the thunder tribulation, perhaps after he reached the Yuanying stage, he would not be able to compare with those who relied on their own strength to cross the tribulation. However, a nascent soul was a nascent soul after all. it was still a lot higher than a peak stage golden core. The accident of the questioning inner heart pill made Xiao Ming see the hope and path after the Yuanying stage. Under this strong stimulation, Xiao Ming's cultivation broke through again and reached the limit of the peak Jiedan stage. But for some reason, he was always lacking at the last step, unable to take that step. This situation had been going on for several years. Of course, Xiao Ming was unwilling to stop at this last threshold. He consulted almost all the nascent soul experts in the sect, but no one could give him a specific answer. After all, everyone's experience was different, and everyone's situation was different. The problems they encountered were also different. There was no universal solution. After the news that Yang Chun had returned to the sect to concentrate on alchemy spread, Xiao Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. When Yang Chun was a training disciple at Yeshio Manor, there was no cultivation problem that he could not solve. Although it was only a matter of the qi refining stage, Xiao Ming knew that as an expert at the peak of the gold core stage, he could not do this. Since Yang Chun had such a keen eye for cultivation and was also well-read, he might be able to find out where his problem lay and give him pointers to break through. If it were someone else, it would definitely take a long time for a master at the peak of the Jiedan stage, especially an elder and a superior, to ask a junior and subordinate for advice. However, for Mr. Xiao Ming, it was not a problem at all. Otherwise, how could he be a good person? Because he could put down his body and was not ashamed to ask. The first time, after Yang Chan finished refining the questioning inner heart pill, he only went to the head of the palace for half a day, and then continued to retreat for alchemy. Xiao Ming could not stop him. This time, Xiao Ming simply waited outside Yang Chen's alchemy room. As soon as Yang Chen came out, he saw Xiao Ming and heard Xiao Ming's question. His elder and superior came to ask him. Yang Chen certainly had to treat it with caution. However, after carefully listening to Xiao Ming's understanding of his own cultivation, Yang Chen still frowned. Xiao Ming had two problems. One was his character. This couldn't be helped. His character couldn't be changed. The other reason was that he was unable to control his cultivation down to the finest detail. It couldn't be helped that Xiao Ming came at the right time. Yang Chun had just finished refining the inner sensing pill, and he appeared in front of Yang Chun. He was simply a natural test subject for Yang Chun. Hall Master, this medicinal pill is called the inner sensing pill. It is the medicinal pill of the monster race. Yang Chen's palm put a round and bulging medicinal pill. On the brown medicinal pill, the two eye-catching pill marks seemed to remind Xiao Ming that this was a second-grade medicinal pill. Xiao Ming didn't know what Yang Chen meant by giving this medicinal pill to himself, but he had a benefit. If he didn't know, he wouldn't say it. He didn't interrupt Yang Chen's words and quietly waited for Yang Chen's explanation. The inner sensing pill can enhance the senses of the person who takes the medicine by 10 times and have a more thorough understanding of their own blood and spiritual power circulation. Yang Chan slowly introduced. However, this medicinal pill has a side effect. That is, after the senses are enhanced by 10 times, any feeling, including pain, will also increase by 10 times. After taking the medicine, you will feel extreme discomfort, and it may even be very painful. Yang Chun, of course, had to say the ugly words first, so that Xiao Ming didn't know this and rashly agreed. Maybe 10 times the pain, Home Master, you can still bear it, but this disciple is a second-grade medicinal pill. This disciple doesn't know how many times it can enhance the senses. The implication was that the second-grade inner sensing pill could definitely make people suffer more than 10 times more than usual. Yang Chun didn't have to say too much, and Xiao Ming could understand. Now Xiao Ming was faced with such a choice, either to swallow the medicinal pill and experience the circulation of blood and spiritual power, or to endure great pain, or to accumulate for a period of time. Maybe it would come naturally. Xiao Ming stared at the medicinal pill in Yang Chen's hand and hesitated for a while. There was no way. What Yang Chen said seemed a bit scary, even if it was a master of the peak Jiedan stage. He had to carefully weigh it. After a long time, Xiao Ming still didn't speak, but his hand stretched out and pinched the second-grade inner sensing pill in Yang Chen's hand in his hand. After staring at it for a while, He no longer hesitated and directly sent the medicinal pill into his mouth. As soon as the medicinal pill entered his mouth, it directly turned into a heat flow and rushed directly into his lungs. Immediately, Xiaoming immediately felt the heat flow spread to his whole body, and his whole body was warm. Where was there any pain? And Xiaoming couldn't help but groan. However, when this deep moan reached Xiaoming's ears, it was like a bolt of lightning on a clear day. Xiaoming never thought that his groan could be so loud, and his ears were actually a little painful. Soon, all kinds of sounds came to his ears: breathing, heartbeat. Almost every sound seemed to be someone knocking a giant bell in Xiaoming's ear. This was not even counting. Even when the air entered the nasal cavity when he breathed, it could bring a cold chill, plus the pain of the air flowing through the skin like a knife, which directly made Xiaoming fall into great pain. But Xiaoming didn't dare to make a sound at all. He was afraid that once he made a sound, he could break his eardrums. In the severe pain of his whole body, Xiaoming suddenly felt the flow of his blood and noticed the flow of spiritual power. Chapter 643. The painful look on Xiaoming's face couldn't be hidden from Yangchun. In order to help Xiaoming not let him have greater pain, Yangchun even set up a sound isolation formation around Xiaoming to ensure that he would not be disturbed by the outside world. But Yangchun did not think that the sound of Xiaoming's own breathing and heartbeat was enough to make him crazy. His muscles were almost twisted, and the cold sweat never stopped, oozing from Xiaoming's head and body. At this time, Xiaoming, not to mention breathing and heartbeat, even standing in the same place, he could feel that the soles of his feet were like being scalded by a soldering iron, but it was only the pain caused by his own weight on the soles of his feet. Mr. Good has a characteristic that is he can endure. Even Yangchun did not expect that this character would give Xiaoming great help at this time. Even if it was painful, Xiaoming endured it. At this moment, he actually used all kinds of senses to observe, feel, listen to the flow of blood in his body, and experience the flow of spiritual power in his body. Under this feeling, it was even more detailed than using spiritual awareness to explore himself. Some subtle places where Xiaoming had never noticed before were all displayed in Xiaoming's senses at this time. There was never a moment when Xiaoming knew his body so well. In the great pain, Xiaoming was concentrating on feeling the mystery of his body and did not realize how long it had been. He just knew that his whole body's blood and spiritual power had circulated for more than 20 times. After more than 20 times, there were slight differences each time, but they were all in the same parts. Just when he wanted to continue to feel it, the pain of his whole body was like the water directly seeping into the bucket, suddenly disappearing without a trace, and the clear feeling was lost in an instant. However, Xiaoming did not feel disappointed, just carefully recalling the place where the blood and spiritual power in his body changed every time. Suddenly, Xiaoming had a glimmer of enlightenment. These places were where he couldn't control them accurately. Since he noticed that something was wrong, Xiaoming naturally had to make targeted corrections. With his cultivation at the peak of the Gold Core realm, it only took him a day to find a way to quickly correct those small flaws. When the last part became the same every time, the spiritual power in his body suddenly began to surge. However, this time, it seemed to be 2 times stronger than usual. As soon as the intensity of his spiritual power increased, Xiaoming immediately noticed that his mind was empty. He laughed, and the spiritual power of his whole body surged. The small soundproof array arranged by Yang Chun suddenly broke. In the sky, a large mass of dark clouds inexplicably began to appear. It was still daytime, but when the dark clouds covered the sky, it actually became dark as if it was nighttime. Looking at this scene, Yang Chen's face suddenly showed a smile. Xiaoming, with the help of this inner sensing pill, was enlightened in time and successfully triggered the tribulation. The dark clouds in the sky were the tribulation clouds of the lightning tribulation. Yang Chun knew the tribulation cloud, and of course, many other people in Chunyang Palace also knew it. Soon, there were a few more figures in front of Yang Chen's pill room. It was the head of the palace and several elders, as well as several hall masters. Everyone was attracted by Qiao Ming's abnormal spiritual power. At the same time, they also discovered the tribulation clouds and specially came to watch the ceremony. As soon as he arrived here, the law enforcement hall master immediately understood what happened and quickly left to arrange. Qiao Ming's tribulation was to form his nascent soul. There must be a lot of disciples in the Jidan stage who wanted to watch the ceremony, but they couldn't hinder Qiao Ming's tribulation, so someone must arrange it. The head of the palace looked at Yang Chen strangely. This was outside Yang Chen's pill room, but Qiao Ming was going to cross his tribulation. What was going on? But at this juncture, the head of the palace did not ask much, just paying attention to Qiao Ming not far away. The Jidan stage masters who were still in Chunyang Palace were lucky enough to catch up with Qiao Ming's tribulation this time. Under the quick arrangement of Meng Xian, almost all of them were gathered here, but they were all leaning 200 feet away, watching quietly. Qiao Ming did not let everyone wait for a long time. After the tribulation clouds in the sky slowly formed, there was a click sound, and the first tribulation thunder struck down. The huge lightning directly hit Qiao Ming's body, and Qiao Ming's whole body lit up. However, this light only flashed for a moment before disappearing without a trace. The second, the third, the thunder tribulation was stronger than the last, but Qiao Ming did not dodge at all, and did not even take out the thunder pomegranate given to him by Yang Chen to absorb the power of the thunder tribulation. He just stood still and let the thunder tribulation hit his body. Every time, his body would shine for a while, and then it would return to normal. With each thunder tribulation falling, Qiao Ming's shining time was getting longer and longer. When the last one, the ninth thunder tribulation, fell again, Qiao Ming's body finally moved. In a flash, Qiao Ming had already flown into the air, as if he took the initiative to meet the thunder tribulation. The person flashed a huge light in the air, like a human-shaped firework. Immediately afterward, Qiao Ming's familiar laughter came from the sky, and then Qiao Ming's figure flew directly to the side of the palace master with a bright light. The person was still in the air, and the clouds in the sky suddenly disappeared, and the sky became clear again. Disciple Qiao Ming greets the palace master. When everything had returned to normal, Qiao Ming's people had already bowed in front of the palace master. Congratulations. The head of the palace congratulated Qiao Ming. The other elders around him were also full of joy and a series of congratulations. The tribulation was successful, and the Yuaning stage was completed in the process of crossing the tribulation. Qiao Ming had become another Yuaning stage master announced by the Chunyang Palace. And this time, the tribulation was very thorough. Without the help of the power of the thunder pomegranate, it was purely Qiao Ming's own cultivation base. A group of Jidan stage masters witnessed the process of Qiao Ming's tribulation, and all of them had some insights. The high-level members of the Chunyang Palace were all there. For the time being, there was nothing for them to do here. They all quickly returned to their own courtyards, and then recalled the process of crossing the tribulation in order to increase their experience. What happened in the end? After a rush of congratulations, the palace master finally asked, "This disciple has been stuck in the bottleneck for a long time. I took a medicinal pill newly refined by Yang Chen, and by chance, I succeeded in crossing the tribulation." Qiao Ming certainly would not hide it, and directly said the cause and effect. "A medicinal pill made you break through? What kind of medicinal pill is that?" The palace master was overjoyed and immediately asked quickly, "Is it the Yuaning pill?" "It is the pill recipe that this disciple got from the monster race, the inner sensing pill." Yang Chen replied respectfully, and his face was also full of joy. Chapter 644. The medicinal pill of the monster race. The master of the palace was just stunned, but immediately returned to normal. Whether it was the medicinal pill of the human race or the monster race, as long as it worked, it was a good medicinal pill. What is the effect of this medicinal pill? Zhu Qintao, as the master of the medicinal hall, was naturally very concerned about the medicinal pill and immediately couldn't wait to ask. After Yang Chen introduced the role of the inner sensing pill, everyone was silent. To explore the operation of their own blood and spiritual power in the body, This kind of medicinal pill was simply unheard of and unseen. Everyone understood that no matter how powerful a genius was, when they were cultivating, it was impossible to take care of everything. There were always some parts of the body that were not taken into account. They were strong and weak. This was a very normal phenomenon, but everyone generally did not take care of it when they were cultivating. This was not to say that everyone did not pay attention to it when they were cultivating, but the meridians on the body were originally distributed in disorder. They were dense, and it was normal for this kind of situation to occur. Only those who cultivated to the extreme could feel the distribution of blood in the body and could make up for the shortcomings in the body. But most people, even more than half of the Yuanying stage masters, could not do this. This medicinal pill actually had such a powerful function. After listening to the introduction of Yang Chun, after contemplating for a while, the eyes of several Yuanying stage ancestors suddenly lit up. With this inner sensing pill, didn't it mean that everyone could clearly know the situation in their own body in the future and targeted to make up for some of the places that they could not cultivate? No wonder Qiao Ming could break through to the peak Jidan stage. It was really powerful. All the people present were elder-level figures, and the only two who were not elders were Yang Chun and Qiao Ming. Among the two, one was the refiner of the medicinal pill, and the other had already crossed the tribulation and would soon join the ranks of the elders. At the beginning, when Yang Chun introduced it, the master of the palace quietly arranged 2 restrictions isolating the possibility of outsiders eavesdropping. Now that they were all on the same side, naturally there was no need to hide anything. Everyone knew that Yang Chun had added a big killing weapon to the Chunyang Palace, and everyone's heart was filled with uncontrollable excitement. This inner sensing pill, not only could it be used by the Jidan stage masters, even these Yuanying stage ancestors could still use it. The news that Qiao Ming was promoted to a Yuanying stage ancestor quickly spread out, but not many people knew that it was related to Yang Chun. Chunyang Palace tightly sealed the news, but some people inside Chunyang Palace were vaguely aware that Qiao Ming's promotion must have something to do with Yang Chun. Just the fact that Qiao Ming's tribulation was outside of Yang Chen's alchemy workshop was enough to arouse many people's imagination. However, those who could attend the ceremony at that time were basically trustworthy people in Chunyang Palace. No matter who they would not leak the news. However, Yang Chun now had to start to consider whether the power of the second-grade inner sensing pill was too strong and the medicinal effect was too fierce. Although Qiao Ming had already advanced to the nascent soul realm, there was still some small damage to his hearing. It would take a while to recover. For this issue, Zhu Chuntao, who had the most right to speak on alchemy, also temporarily supported Yang Chen's proposition. According to Qiao Ming's personal experience, after the inner sensing pill was taken, although the time of effect was very short, it was only for dozens of breaths, but it made Qiao Ming have a huge pain. If the duration was longer, although Qiao Ming could still form his nascent soul, he would inevitably be hurt more deeply. The second-grade inner sensing pill, after Yang Chun and Zhu Chuntao discussed it, they decided to temporarily seal it. Next, Yang Chun would first refine a batch of first-grade inner sensing pills. Perhaps after the adaptation of the first-grade inner sensing pill, everyone would be able to get used to the powerful medicinal properties of the second-grade inner sensing pill. There was a refining, and it was still a second-grade refining, so it was much simpler for Yang Chun to refine the first-grade inner sensing pill again. This time, it only took 3 months to complete the refining of the first-grade inner sensing pill. Yang Chun was refining, but the news of Qiao Ming forming his nascent soul had already spread. Chunyang Palace was now rising, so everyone was always paying attention to the news about Chunyang Palace. A good gentleman had actually succeeded in forming his nascent soul, and it was in the situation where he had been troubled by the peak Jidan stage for hundreds of years. Originally, Qiao Ming was a quiet person, and everyone had almost forgotten his existence. Among the several hall masters of Chunyang Palace, Liang Xiaoming was famous. When had they heard of Qiao Ming? But Qiao Ming actually formed his nascent soul, which made people puzzled. Many people began to inquire if Qiao Ming had any adventures, or for other reasons. However, the people of Chunyang Palace were very tight-lipped, and almost all the people who had attended the ceremony were in retreat, so outsiders simply did not know the reason. Regarding the matter of the inner sensing pill, Chunyang Palace intended to hold it tightly in their hands and temporarily not spread it. It must be known that the pill recipe of the monster race was not only available in Chunyang Palace. Being able to have a period of time was an advantage for a period of time. When Yang Chun came out of the alchemy room again, the door of the alchemy room had been replaced by another person, but it was Su Qingxin, the home master of the Foreign Affairs Hall. When Su Qingxin saw Yang Chun, he was also looking forward to it. The whole story of Qiao Ming forming his nascent soul, Chunyang Palace did not hide it from these hall masters. Seeing that Qiao Ming had also succeeded in forming his nascent soul, Su Qingxin also had a lot of ideas. According to Su Qingxin's qualifications, being in the peak Jidan stage was already the limit. Su Qingxin himself was well aware of this, and the other high-level members of Chunyang Palace were also well aware of it. If there was no Yang Chun and there was no inner sensing pill, Su Qingxin would accept his fate. However, Chunyang Palace had an alchemy master, and his medicinal pills were superb. Not only was there a questioning inner heart pill, but now there was also an inner sensing pill. Looking at Xiao Ming, who was about the same as himself, after taking a second-grade inner sensing pill, he successfully crossed his tribulation and formed his nascent soul, which made Su Qingxin unable to sit still. After thinking about it again and again, he went directly to the door of Yang Chen's alchemy room and waited, looking forward to a miracle. Su Qingxin's thoughts, Yang Chen knew it clearly. In his previous life, Su Qingxin was also stuck in the bottleneck of forming his nascent soul. Until the destruction of Chunyang Palace, he could not go further. In the battle with the Taishaman, he died. In this life, Su Qingxin also took care of Yang Chen a lot. Not to mention later, when Chu Hong was still there, Su Qingxin took care of Yang Chen at the Heavenly Stairway Gathering. Of course, Yang Chen would not forget this sentiment, so he would give Su Qingxin the mantis puppet and thunder pomegranate. However, since there was an inner sensing pill, Su Qingxin had to try to see if this medicinal pill of the monster race that had not been refined by the second grade had any effect. Chapter 645. Of course, this time, Yang Chun and Su Qingxin would not immediately test the effect of the inner sensing pill at the door of Yang Chen's pill room. With the last incident, the two of them had to report to the head of the palace. Yang Chun had this intention. Su Qingxin had been responsible for foreign affairs for many years and knew this truth better. The two came to the residence of the head of the palace and explained their intentions. This time, the head of the palace was very straightforward and gathered several elders. Everyone wanted to see the effect of this inner sensing pill with their own eyes. Su Qingxin had made up his mind and did not care that he had become the object of the test. He quietly waited for the arrival of the elders and then started. All the elders were here, and even Xiao Ming, who was newly promoted to the Yuanying stage ancestor, was no exception. The elders wanted to urgently know if this inner sensing pill was really helpful in forming the nascent soul. In 3 months, Xiao Ming's hearing damage had been completely recovered, and he was steadily consolidating his cultivation base. It seemed that there was nothing wrong with taking the inner sensing pill at all. In order to prevent the carelessness of taking the medicinal pill and immediately starting the tribulation to form the nascent soul, this time, Su Qingxin took the medicine in the mountain gate of the Chunyang Palace. Of course, it was not in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortal's cave, so as not to damage the Immortal's cave because of the tribulation. After arranging a soundproof formation, Su Qingxin sat cross-legged, put on a posture of cultivation, and swallowed the first-grade inner sensing pill in his hand. Soon, in the eyes of everyone, they saw the abnormality shown by Su Qingxin. His face was flushed, as if he was enduring some pain. Looking at this scene, everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes, looking at Su Qingxin without blinking, for fear of missing something. What was surprising was that the first-grade inner sensing pill lasted several times longer than the second-grade inner sensing pill. When Xiaoming took it, it was only a few dozen breaths before the effect disappeared, And now, Su Qingxin actually persisted for half an incense stick of time before it ended. This time, there was no tribulation cloud immediately, indicating that Su Qingxin did not enter the state of forming the nascent soul. However, even so, Su Qingxin's face was full of cold sweat, as if he had experienced a painful ordeal. Everyone didn't know what the situation was like. No one dared to take the initiative to open the restriction. Everything was waiting for Chief Su to do it himself. After a long time, Hall Master Su slowly returned to normal and took the initiative to remove the restriction. Immediately, he heard the eagerness of the head of the palace. "How is it? My cultivation is still not up to par." Su Qingxin may have realized a lot of things from this time's inner sensing pill. Although he was not able to form his nascent soul on the spot, his face still couldn't suppress the excitement. "I thought I had reached the peak of the Jidan stage. Only the last step was left. Now I understand that it is still far away." He checked the circulation of his qi, blood, and spiritual power. Sure enough, he was right. Su Qingxin finally understood why he had been unable to cross over. However, despite his excitement, Su Qingxin still felt some regret. After a pause, Su Qingxin slowly shook his head and said, "When I was at Foundation Establishment, I went in the wrong direction. Even now, I can't change it." After he said that, everyone sighed. There was a deviation when laying the foundation. Now, it was as difficult as ascending to heaven to correct it. Not to mention Yang Chun, it was estimated that even the Grand Supreme Elderly Lord could not change it. Unless Su Qingxin was willing to abolish his cultivation base and start over again. However, at Su Qingxin's current age, abolishing his cultivation base meant a dead end. If he didn't wait for his cultivation base to be restored, it was estimated that his lifespan would be exhausted. Try to make up for it. If it doesn't work, use the Thunder Pomegranate to forcibly cross the tribulation and improve your cultivation base. Everyone was silent, and no one said anything. Yang Chen looked at it and said next to him, "Maybe with the help of the thunder during the tribulation, these hidden dangers can be removed." Crossing the tribulation was not only a test of heaven, but also a reward for the person who crossed the tribulation. Originally, everyone was a little depressed. When they heard the words of Yang Chen, everyone suddenly became spirited. Even Su Qingxin changed his previous regret and became more and more excited. This first-grade inner sensing pill. Is there any unbearable situation? Now that there was a way, everyone was no longer silent. Zhu Qintao immediately revolved around the efficacy of the inner sensing pill and asked Su Qingxin how he felt. Su Qingxin didn't hide anything and quickly told him what he felt. With a comparison with Xiao Ming, everyone quickly figured out a lot. The first-grade inner sensing pill and the second-grade inner sensing pill, basically the efficacy should be the same. The difference was that the second-grade inner sensing pill shortened the time by almost 10 times, but it increased the sensory sensitivity by more than 10 times. While the pain was aggravated, it could also make people who took the medicine more clearly understand the problem. This time, Su Qingxin understood a lot, but it was still not enough. In response to the problems found this time, several elders took turns to point out and quickly adjusted Su Qingxin's cultivation. In just a short month, Su Qingxin had corrected his previous cultivation mistakes. Everyone gathered again, and Su Qingxin once again took a first-grade inner sensing pill and understood his own blood and spiritual power. However, this time it was obvious that Su Qingxin was used to it a lot and did not show so much pain. "How is it?" It was still Zhu Qintao who asked. "The problems from the last time have been corrected, and nothing else has been found." Su Qingxin quickly replied, thinking about it, and continued, "Maybe the first-grade inner sensing pill can no longer make me feel deeper." This point, everyone also accepted. Taking the first-grade inner sensing pill twice, there would not be too many things that could be felt at this level. If he wanted to continue to understand it deeply, it was estimated that he still needed the second-grade inner sensing pill. Try the second grade. It was Qiao Ming who spoke. Only Qiao Ming had taken the second-grade inner sensing pill, and he was the most vocal besides Yang Chun. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Su Qingxin swallowed a second-grade inner-sensing pill. Inside the formation, Su Qingxin's face suddenly turned red, his body trembled, the muscles on his face twisted directly, and there was no place on his body that was not tense. He could no longer adhere to the sitting posture of cultivation, and his body directly completed the shape of a shrimp. Everyone was shocked, but at this moment, no one could help. Apart from watching Su Qingxin struggle to endure it, there was no other way. Fortunately, the time did not last long, and the time of dozens of breaths was fleeting. Soon, Su Qingxin's body slowly unfolded, and the look on his face was no longer so painful. Just as everyone was rejoicing in the clear sky, there was a sudden wind and clouds, and a large dark cloud quickly shrouded the sky over Chunyang Palace. In a moment, the sky was covered tightly. The tribulation cloud of the thunder tribulation actually came again at this time. Looking at this scene, all the high-level members of Chunyang Palace were happy to the extreme. Chapter 646. Not to mention whether Su Qingxin's tribulation was successful or not, just the 2-second-grade inner-sensing pills allowed the two masters of the peak Jidan stage to begin the process of crossing their tribulation, which had already explained many problems. The effect of the second-grade inner-sensing pill at this moment had been raised by the head of the palace and the elders to a level similar to that of the nascent soul pill, and the spiritual awareness was even better. After all, the nascent soul pill only improved the success rate of forming the nascent soul. It was only effective after the user reached the stage of forming the nascent soul. Unlike now, it could raise the peak Jidan stage to the stage of forming the nascent soul. The tribulation clouds in the sky were getting lower and lower, and Su Qingxin's face in the formation was getting more and more serious. He raised his head and looked nervously at the approaching tribulation clouds, and 2 thunder pomegranates suddenly appeared in his hands. This was what Yang Qian gave him a long time ago. The intention was to let Su Qingxin absorb part of the power of the thunder tribulation when he was not sure of crossing the tribulation. Such a scene has already attracted the attention of many people. The Jidan stage disciples who have been in Chunyang Palace recently were definitely blessed. In just 3 or 4 months, they could continuously watch the process of the two masters crossing the tribulation and forming the nascent soul. For them, it was definitely the best reference and experience. Without the arrangement of the head of the palace, those Jidan stage disciples skillfully occupied their respective positions and observed carefully. The whole process was very orderly, as if it had been rehearsed thousands of times. In fact, it was only because it had been done once more than 3 months ago that everyone was familiar with it. This was the core area of Chunyang Palace, and the defense was tight. Su Qingxin's process of crossing the tribulation was not afraid of others' interference. It was not easy to appear in this place, break through the siege of hundreds of Jidan stage masters, and make trouble under the eyes of the 11 Yuanying stage masters of Chunyang Palace. Seeing that the tribulation clouds were getting lower and lower, with a click, a thunder light finally broke out and directly hit Su Qingxin's body. The first thunder tribulation, Su Qingxin did not use the thunder pomegranate. If he couldn't even take the first thunder tribulation himself, there was no difference whether he used the thunder pomegranate or not. The lightning tribulations had always been stronger than the previous one. In fact, the more thunder tribulation he could withstand, the greater the benefits for the future. Only when he was not sure could he use the thunder pomegranate. Boom! The formation around Su Qingxin's body shattered in response, and lightning directly descended on his body. It was different from Xiao Ming. Xiao Ming had a fire spirit root, so when the lightning tribulation struck his body, it immediately shone brightly. Su Qingxin, on the other hand, had a water attribute spiritual root. The moment the lightning tribulation entered his body, it was as if it was absorbed by Su Qingxin's body, disappearing without a trace. Su Qingxin easily withstood the first lightning tribulation. His face revealed an even more confident expression. However, the 2 thunder pomegranates in his hands had not been withdrawn. He still held them in his hands, just in case. Boom! The second bolt of lightning descended and sank into Su Qingxin's body. But this time, Su Qingxin was not as relaxed as before. It took a while for the aftershocks of the lightning to slowly disappear. Then came the third, the fourth, each thicker than the last, until the eighth. The first lightning bolt was only as thick as a person's thigh, but the eighth lightning bolt was as thick as two people. When the eighth lightning bolt entered his body, Su Qingxin's face was already covered in sweat. Anyone could see that he was struggling to resist. Finally, Su Qingxin, who was flushed, completely absorbed the eighth lightning tribulation, but the power of the lightning tribulation still made him vomit blood. A mouthful of bright red blood sprayed out 3 feet away. It was a ghastly sight to behold. The Jidan stage masters who were watching the ceremony were all in a cold sweat and worried about Su Qingxin. At the same time, they were also very concerned. If they saw a master who was crossing the tribulation fail when they were watching the ceremony, it would have some impact on their own cultivation and confidence. The ninth lightning bolt was even stronger than the eighth. It was already as thick as 3 people. The light was so blazing that people did not dare to look directly at it. In the worried eyes of everyone, the lightning tribulation once again fell on the top of Su Qingxin's head without mercy. This time, Su Qingxin did not try to be brave again, but used the thunder pomegranate. 2 thunder pomegranates that were bigger than Su Qingxin's fists appeared directly on the top of Su Qingxin's head. The thick lightning bolt, as if it had encountered some attraction, was directly divided into 3, 2 of which instantly disappeared into the 2 thunder pomegranates. The remaining one, the original 1/3 of the lightning tribulation, once again fell on Su Qingxin's body. The weakened 1/3 of the lightning tribulation was no longer a threat to Su Qingxin, and it was even easier than the 8th lightning tribulation. When the 9th lightning tribulation also disappeared into Su Qingxin's body, the tribulation clouds in the sky finally no longer gathered and slowly began to dissipate, revealing a clear sky. Su Qingxin's body sat firmly in the same place, and there was almost no change. However, several elders who were closer to him had already noticed that the momentum that he exuded was completely different from the past. The lightning tribulation disappeared, and Su Qingxin, who was sitting in the same place, finally returned to normal. He suddenly opened his eyes, laughed, and stood up. "Congratulations!" The master of the palace immediately congratulated Su Qingxin. The surrounding elders were also beaming with joy as they congratulated Su Qingyi. At this point, everyone knew that Su Qingxin was successful in crossing the tribulation this time, and there was another Yuanying stage master in Chunyang Palace. Although Su Qingxin still used the thunder pomegranate at the last moment, after all, he still passed the tribulation. The Yuanying stage was the Yuanying stage. Even if it was a weak Yuanying stage master, it was much stronger than the Jidan stage master. In less than 4 months, Chunyang Palace had produced 2 Yuanying stage masters. This news, it was believed that it would soon spread throughout the cultivation world. The 2 who were promoted to the Yuanying stage, one was Mr. Qiao Ming, and the other was the Foreign Affairs Hall Master Su Qingxin. Many people were not optimistic about the 2 before. Now they were promoted almost at the same time. It was estimated that many people would break their heads to know. The master of the palace had decided to use the 2nd grade inner sensing pill as the secret weapon of Chunyang Palace. The inner sensing pill was the pill recipe of the monster race, and some people could get it from other channels. However, the 2nd grade refining was not something that everyone could do. If used well, these inner sensing pills could definitely bring a large number of masters to Chunyang Palace. Just when everyone thought that this time Su Qingxin's tribulation was over, and they wanted to disperse and go back to laugh at Su Qingxin's tribulation experience, suddenly, an aura that almost made everyone tremble suddenly appeared on the top of everyone's head. The powerful aura directly enveloped all the areas of Chunyang Palace and did not dissipate for a long time. But in the sky, a vision began to appear again. Chapter 647. A violent gust of wind appeared out of nowhere, causing everyone's clothes to flutter loudly. A faint haze began to slowly appear. That powerful aura was also getting stronger and stronger, as if it was provoking something. In the sky, the white haze was getting thicker and thicker, almost enveloping the entire area. Master Ancestor is going to cross the tribulation. Yang Chun was the first to react. His spiritual awareness instantly found the source of this aura. It was the place where Wang Yong retreated. When the head of the palace and the surrounding elders heard Yang Chen's words, they immediately reacted, and one by one, they were even more surprised. Wang Yong's tribulation meant that Chunyang Palace could soon have a master of the Deshang stage. How could it not make everyone happy? Not good. Let everyone disperse. The Yin fire tribulation is not something that anyone can watch. The head of the palace instantly realized that it was not appropriate. If they allowed the current scene to continue, then these Jidan stage masters did not know how dangerous it would be. Several elders suddenly got busy and quickly evacuated the surrounding Jidan stage disciples to a safe distance. Fortunately, the Yin fire tribulation was not coming immediately, and there was still a long time for everyone to evacuate safely. It was almost impossible for a Jidan stage master to watch the Yin fire tribulation, unless they were as powerful as Yang Chun. However, even so, at a distance, they could feel the aura of the Yin fire tribulation, which is a rare experience for any cultivator. Originally, only the Jidan stage masters of Chunyang Palace had this good luck, but now, the cultivators within the entire Meiqing mountain range seem to have a blessing. This kind of opportunity usually could not be asked for, but they actually let them encounter it. Everyone quickly dispersed, but the head of the palace secretly released the 8 Yuanying stage cultivators who were accepted in the Blue Vault Mountain Immortals Cave. This kind of opportunity to watch the Yin fire tribulation at a close distance, of course, must be enjoyed by their own people. The old tree demon was also attracted. He had not appeared for a long time, and he appeared next to Yang Chun. Without waiting for Yang Chun to say anything, he directly enveloped Yang Chun within his protective range. Although Yang Chun had the ability to protect himself, his friendship with the old tree demon was not enough for Yang Chun to protect himself when the old tree demon was around. The power of Yin fire tribulation was huge, and Wang Yang's momentum was getting stronger and stronger. As the haze became thicker and thicker, Wang Yang's momentum also rose higher and higher. Finally, when Wang Yang's momentum reached its peak, the Yin fire tribulation began to descend. Grandmaster Wang Yang's figure directly broke through the seclusion room and appeared in the sky above everyone's heads. Through the haze, everything seemed hazy, and he couldn't see very clearly. However, at this time, no one was stupid enough to release their spiritual awareness to explore. It was simply blatantly helping Wang Yong bear the power of the Yin fire tribulation. The Yin fire tribulation of a Yuanying stage master who was promoted to the Deshang stage, except for the old tree demon. Who else could take it? As Gao Yu's master and Yang Chen's grandmaster, Wang Yong naturally had a fire spirit root. The Yin fire tribulation came, and everyone only saw a burning humanoid torch in the haze. Although Wang Yong could be seen burning, the light of the burning was not intense at all. It was just a little brighter than the normal situation. It was not enough to break through all the haze and let everyone see it clearly. But even so, the huge power of the Yin fire tribulation, even if everyone was so far away, they could still feel it. It was just a little bit, but everyone was surprised by the power of the Yin fire tribulation. As a Yuanying stage master, many elders felt this degree of tribulation, and they couldn't help but change their faces one by one. Not to mention resisting the tribulation, let the strongest one among them barely bear half of the power of the first Yin fire tribulation. It was estimated that they would die on the spot. Could it be that this Yin fire tribulation was so strong? For a time, everyone, including the master of the palace, had a feeling of discouragement. The flame in Junior Brother Wang's body has absorbed the power of the Yin fire tribulation, so there will be this kind of power. The old tree demon next to him also felt that Wang Yang's Yin fire tribulation was extraordinary, but he quickly figured out the problem and said, "This time the Yin fire tribulation is a bit more powerful, but it is not unbearable for everyone." But if you want to add Junior Brother Wang's flame, I can't take it. Gue Shanyu was a disciple of the Master of the Palace, and his seniority was the same as the Master of the Palace. Plus, he was the oldest, so he called Wang Yong as a junior brother. When he explained this, everyone immediately understood. The Yin Fire Tribulation plus Wang Yong's own flame. Of course, the power was not strong, and it was normal to not be able to take it. Gue Shanyu's body was a laurel tree, the first wood attribute of iron, and the fire restrained the wood. It was innately limited, and it was normal that he could not take it. However, why did Wang Yong merge his own flame with the Yin Fire Tribulation and enhance the power to this point? Looking at the hazy figure in the mist, no one could understand. The ancestor is using the power of the Yin Fire Tribulation to quench a new flame and to absorb the power of the Yin Fire. Yang Chun suddenly explained on the side. Among the people present, if Yang Chun dared to say that his understanding of the flame ranks second, then no one dared to claim to be the first, even Wang Yong, who was facing the tribulation. Don't look at him as the ancestor, but he really couldn't compare with Yang Chen's insight. Listening to Yang Chen's explanation, everyone once again realized. For Yang Chen to speak at this time, no one expressed surprise. Even the newly received Yuanying stage masters of the Hall of Eccentrics were the same. After understanding, everyone looked forward to Wang Yong more and more. Others were cautious in their tribulation, and they could not concentrate on the power of the tribulation. Wang Yong actually had the leisure time to absorb the Yin Fire Tribulation to quench the flame. It could be seen that his confidence was not ordinary. Could it be that this time, Chunyang Palace was really going to have another master of the Deshang stage? The fluctuation of the vitality in Meiqing Mountain was simply the best sign. Even if it was a cultivator with no knowledge, they knew that there was a master who was facing the tribulation. In the same day, there were two heavenly tribulations, a thunder tribulation and an Yin Fire Tribulation, which surprised some of the guys lurking in Meiqing Mountain, and they couldn't believe what they saw. If Su Chengxin's Yuanying stage was acceptable to everyone, then the sudden appearance of a quasi-Deshang stage master was absolutely shocking. Wang Yong's retreat to the Deshang stage was not concealed from outsiders. So many people guessed that Wang Yong was facing the tribulation. Countless people stared at the direction of the tribulation, and there was only one concept left in their hearts. Within 3 or 4 months, Chunyang Palace had 2 more Yuanying stage masters. If Wang Yong passed the Yin Fire Tribulation, then there would be another master of the Deshang stage. This rapid increase in power could only explain one thing. Chunyang Palace was really rising. Chapter 648. There was an essential difference between having one master of the Deshang stage and 2 masters of the Deshang stage in a sect. If nothing else, a master of the Deshang stage. The best result for the sect was to sit in the sect and guide the younger generation while cultivating. However, this method had a big flaw. Reading 10,000 books was not as good as walking 10,000 miles. A master of the Deshang stage could not become a master by staying in the sect and then reach the peak of the tribulation to ascend. They always had to experience all kinds of human feelings, accumulate enough experience, and even have arduous battles in order to improve their own state of mind. The masters who have been staying in the sect would never be able to ascend. However, the sect was the foundation of the development of the entire sect, and everyone must strictly guard it. If it wasn't for the old tree demon Gue Shanyu who had a clone, he could only stay in Meiqing Mountain. The 2 masters of the Deshang stage were different. The 2 could take turns and discuss with each other. When the cultivation base reached the level of the Deshang stage, many times the cultivation was not simply the cultivation of spiritual power, but the improvement of the state of mind. It was always better to discuss with 2 people than to be depressed. When a master of the Deshang stage was in, he could only work hard to understand himself. Even if he wanted to ask others, there was no chance. First, there were not many people who could instruct the masters of the Deshang stage. Second, the masters of other sects. Why would they instruct you? 2 people were different. There were not so many precautions between the same sect. At least in some aspects, they could discuss freely, which was especially important for the cultivation of the state of mind. Apart from these, to deal with a master of the Deshang stage, At least one master of the Deshang stage was needed, and perhaps a few Yuanying stage masters were needed to help. But to deal with 2 masters of the Deshang stage, it must be at least 3 masters of the Deshang stage to have a chance of winning. It could be said that 2 masters of the Deshang stage meant that this sect was as stable as Mount Tai and could be passed on for a long time. Wang Yong was different from the old tree demon Gui Shanyu. The old tree demon was a different person and later joined the Chunyang Palace. But Wang Yong entered the Chunyang Palace from the beginning of his cultivation and cultivated little by little until he reached this point. His feelings for Chunyang Palace were far beyond that of the old tree demon. The head of the palace and other elders were more willing to have a native master of the Deshang stage, so that outsiders would say that Chunyang Palace really had a master of the Deshang stage cultivated by themselves, rather than being lucky in recruiting one. Wang Yong's fire tribulation continued, but except for the old tree demon and Yang Chun, everyone else had to retreat. The momentum coming from Wang Yong's side had been rising, and the flame on Wang Yong's body, for some reason, had released an amazing heat. Even the head of the palace and the elders could not resist it, and could only retreat. It wasn't that they couldn't withstand this level of heat, but if they wanted to resist it, they would have to use their spiritual power to resist. At this time, whether it was the confrontation of spiritual power or the exploration of a divine sense, it would only invite trouble to oneself. The heavenly tribulation would not care whether it was the person crossing the tribulation or not. The old tree demon was of the wood attribute. In addition to being able to feel that Wang Yong's flame was very dangerous, he could not deeply understand Wang Yong's fire control technique and the difficulty of it. However, the old tree demon was not clear, but Yang Chun was very clear. Wang Yong used the fire of the heavenly tribulation to quench his own flame, which made Yang Chun very surprised. What surprised him the most was that he couldn't recognize what Wang Yong's flame was. When Wang Yong was in the peak Yuanying stage, it was only a 4th grade fire seed. Before the retreat, he had not heard of Wang Yong getting any good fire seed. But now in the eyes of Yang Chun, Wang Yong's fire seed was no longer the original 4th grade fire seed, but a flame that he had never seen before. The strength of this flame was rare in the world. Even Yang Chun was not sure to recognize it, and others were even more puzzled. Yang Chun couldn't understand what kind of fire seed this was, or he could only wait for Wang Yong's tribulation to complete before he could really know the answer. Using the fire tribulation to quench the flame, this was not Wang Yong's original creation, but the result of Yang Chun's intentional or unintentional mention before. At this point, Yang Chun was not surprised at all, but this flame was really too strong. According to Yang Chun's estimation, it had at least reached the level of the 6th grade flame. That was still the current level. If he waited for it to be quenched with the fire tribulation, he might be able to break through the limit of the 6th level and become a 7th level flame. The 7th level flame that was already the strongest in the mortal world. The pure Yang true fire left by the ancestor was just a 7th level flame. Wang Yong did not rely on the strength of the original flame, but abruptly used his own and external forces to raise the grade of his own fire seed to the extreme. It was simply challenging the limits of the cultivators in the world. In the previous life, Wang Yong had fallen before he even reached the peak Yuanying stage. In this life, with Yang Chun, everything has become completely different from the original. According to this level, the development of Wang Yong was stronger than that of Yang Chun's previous life. You must know that even if Yang Chun's previous life was bad, he was still ranked as a great principal golden immortal. The fire burned silently, and the people in the distance seemed to only be able to see this. However, Yang Chun and the old tree demon were so close that they could see it more clearly. Although the master of the palace and other Yuanying stage masters were a little further away, they could also see it clearly. As the 2nd stage of the fire tribulation, in addition to burning on the body of Wang Yong, it was also burning in Wang Yong's flame. No one could describe the situation at this moment. There was only one thought in the eyes of everyone who saw this scene. That was Wang Yong, whether it was the flame or the body, seemed to be bathed in the fire of the tribulation, purifying and quenching, or perhaps Nirvana rebirth was more suitable to describe the change of Wang Yong at this moment. Everyone understood the danger of the Yin fire tribulation, but no one in this circle thought that this Yin fire tribulation would have any impact on Wang Yong. This was a speechless feeling. It seemed that in everyone's mind, it was so natural. The smile on Yang Qin's face had never been less. He had completely seen that Wang Yong did not take the risk of crossing the tribulation after barely reaching the realm. But after experiencing sufficient accumulation, he made the decision to cross the tribulation. Perhaps it was attracted by the 2 consecutive thunder tribulations in just 2 months. The changes caused by the heaven and earth's essence would never be hidden from the perception of Wang Yong, and the success of the 2 people in a row also made Wang Yong full of confidence in his own tribulation. In short, in the process of Wang Yong's tribulation, it was full of an indomitable momentum. This momentum was even stronger than the old tree demon who had suppressed more than a dozen Yin fire tribulations.